Chapter 390. Yang Chendong had only appeared and said a few words, but the city gates that should not have been opened completely opened. This scene was seen by Peng Yu and Ba Daojiang, who were accompanying them, and a sense of pride arose spontaneously. Wang Yong also saw this scene, and his heart was greatly shaken. He had a deeper understanding of Yang Chendong. This young man really did have some ability. The city gates opened wide, and Yang Chendong and his group entered the city. There were already people leading the way to the prison in the city where Cheng Yuan was being held. The prison was not too far from the city gates. In less than the time it took to drink a cup of tea, they arrived here. When they arrived here, there were two groups of torches rapidly approaching. Yang Chendong arrived first, and from a distance, he could already see the torches approaching. However, he did not give them a second glance. Instead, he nodded to Chen Bo in front of him, and then the two rows of soldiers charged into the prison. The southern Ming soldiers in charge of security and guarding did not even understand what was going on before they were pressed to the ground. Some people wanted to resist, but they were quickly beaten to the ground after taking two more punches. What's going on? The two groups of torches finally approached, illuminating the place as if it was daytime. Guaning and Ma Wei appeared at Yang Chendong's side, fully clad in armor. They were originally anxious, but when they saw Yang Chendong's figure, they quickly came over to greet him. "Greetings, Imperial Envoy." Yang Chendong first nodded his head lightly, then asked in a voice that seemed to be concerned, "It's already late at night. Why are you here?" Someone reported to this general that Imperial Envoy entered the city in the middle of the night. "I don't know what happened, so I hurried over to take a look." "That's right, Imperial Envoy. Why are you surrounding this place? Also, what crime did these Ming soldiers commit? Why are you beating them?" After Guaning greeted him, his gaze was fixed on Yang Chendong, as if he wanted an explanation. Although Ma Wei didn't say anything, his body was faintly moving closer to Guaning, indicating his attitude. Yang Chendong didn't answer Guanying's question directly. Instead, he asked rhetorically, "What? Are you questioning the actions of this Imperial Envoy?" "I wouldn't dare. It's just that since I'm in charge of Zhaoqing Manor's safety, I have to get to the bottom of this." Yang Chendong was obviously a little angry, but Guaning was not moved. Instead, he insisted. It had to be said that Guanying's temper wasn't considered to be popular in the imperial court. Fortunately, he held a position in the Ministry of War and was appreciated by Minister Kuang Yi. Otherwise, he would have suffered a lot for speaking to his superior in such a manner. A person like Guaning wouldn't be popular in the South Ming, but his actions were appreciated by Yang Chendong. Not for anything else, but because he dared to call out to him like this in front of his face. This was enough to prove that his courage was praiseworthy. It also proved that this person valued rules in his bones. This kind of person was what the Yang family system needed. Appreciation was one thing. Yang Chendong didn't have any intention of poaching Guaning. It was very difficult for someone like him, whose career was smooth sailing, to be used by him. If he wanted to use people, he had to choose those who had hit a wall or had lost confidence in the Ming dynasty. Guaning was clearly not among them. Since he couldn't be used by him, Yang Chendong wouldn't be so polite when he spoke. When he answered the other person's question, his voice was much colder. "I don't need to explain my actions to anyone other than the emperor. It's best if you stay to the side. Of course, if you want to challenge my bottom line, you can try." As soon as he finished speaking, the remaining platoon of soldiers quickly aimed their guns at Guaning, Ma Wei, and the others. Moving together with them were Chiu Vi and the others from the first guard squad. Among them, Ba Daojiang and Peng Yu were astonishingly among them. However, Ba Daojiang was holding 10,000 shining steel knives. Even though it was He Tian, their movements were still neat and uniform, giving people a soul-shaking feeling. When the pitch-black muzzles of their guns turned in unison, even Guanyin couldn't help but take a step back. The power of these advanced guns had long been tested on the battlefield. To be honest, the power and accuracy of the great Ming dynasty's firearms were not something that could be compared to them. In the past, these things were used to deal with the Huang bandits. When they saw it, they only felt satisfied. However, the moment the muzzles were pointed at them, they felt extremely uneasy. There was even a feeling of suffocation that spread through their bodies. Guanyin took a step back. How could the other southern Ming soldiers not be scared into continuously retreating? They still hadn't figured out what was going on, but the imperial envoy had already turned hostile. What was he trying to do? Ma Wei was also shocked by the change in front of him. After taking a few steps back, he steadied his body. When he noticed that he had almost retreated into the midst of the soldiers behind him, he couldn't help but blush. He hurriedly took 2 steps forward and said to Yang Qindong with an apologetic smile, "Imperial envoy, what is the meaning of this? We are all on the same side. Treat me as one of your own. Treat me as the imperial envoy. You still dare to ask me what I am doing? Do you normally treat your superior with this kind of attitude?" Yang Qindong's tone was filled with anger. He then pointed at his feet and said, "Remember your current position. If anyone dares to take a step forward, execute them on the spot." His voice was cold and merciless. This wasn't because Yang Qindong wanted to take revenge for Wang Yong, so he used this ruthless method. He had thought of doing this before. As the imperial envoy, other than killing Zhaoqing's General Jia Ping and taking care of the Guangdong Prison Department's Han Qing when he had just taken office, he had never shown his thunderous methods. It was to the point that many people had forgotten his cold image. Just like today, he had used 30,000 taels of silver to buy a pig. According to the Bureau of Security's secret report, the price was actually 30% higher than the market price. This was treating him like a sucker. This wasn't just a matter of money. It was a lack of basic respect. In view of this, he had to intimidate people. He could take advantage of this opportunity to take revenge on the other side. It could also be considered a wake-up call for them. The imperial envoy had threatened to kill anyone who crossed the line. Regardless of whether it was Guanyin or Ma Wei, their expressions became ugly. No matter what, Zhaoqing was still southern Ming territory. Although the city was taken down by them, they had given them enough benefits, as discussed before. Since it was like this, what right did they have to order them around as the owner? Wasn't this going too far? At this moment, no matter if it was Guanyin or Ma Wei, both had a sullen expression on their faces. The soldiers beside them also felt the anger of the general. One by one, they involuntarily placed their hands on their waists where there was a saber. Suddenly, an austere atmosphere filled the air. It was also at this time that the originally friendly relationship between everyone began to change. Yang Qindong, who knew how many life and death situations, was naturally especially sensitive to this kind of murderous aura. It wasn't just him. Even Lung Feng and the members of the small guard squad all gripped the 95 style tightly in their hands. It was as if they were waiting for an order to start a massacre. If they really fought at such a close distance, it was basically impossible for Lung Feng to come out unscathed. However, the final victor would undoubtedly be Lung Feng. The advantage of modern weapons against cold weapons was still very obvious. Yang Qindong obviously understood this point. However, he was even more clear that now was not the time to truly turn hostile. Putting aside the fact that his 2 wives were still in the capital of Beiming and some of his businesses were still developing there, if they really fought, even if he could kill Ma Wei and Guanyin, what was the use? These people had no enmity with him. There was no benefit in killing them, only harm. He wasn't willing to do such a loss-making business. He was very clear on this point. Seeing that swords were drawn and bows bent, Yang Chendong suddenly spoke. What? Did you eat too much pork and want to move your body a little? Once these words were spoken, General Ma Wei's originally angry face suddenly flushed red. However, his anger had disappeared. Others might not understand the meaning of these words, but he was very clear. This time, he was in charge of helping the mercenaries buy live pigs. Out of his habit of taking advantage of opportunities, he more or less deducted a little, about 7,000 to 8,000 taels. This was because of his habit, and also because he was envious of the mercenaries' gains. Why should they get all the benefits after entering the city, and he get nothing? You guys get the meat. No matter what, we get the soup. Therefore, when he knew that the mercenaries needed a large number of live pigs, he had an idea. He acted first and reported later, so he deducted a certain amount of commission and benefits. He originally thought that the matter was done covertly. However, Yang Chendong had always been very careful. He was afraid that someone would do something to the food, so he had arranged for Yang San to have the Security Bureau secretly keep an eye on it. He didn't expect that the inside story would be uncovered. Now that Yang Chendong had exposed the matter in front of everyone, Ma Wei's face turned red, and he felt a little lacking in confidence. At this moment, his expression also changed very quickly. Ha ha, ha, it must be a misunderstanding. Quickly stand properly and retreat. Really, we know that the imperial envoy is doing something. We should cooperate. The sudden change stunned the other soldiers. However, since the general had spoken, they didn't dare to disobey. One by one, they put the swords that they were about to pull out back into the sheath. Then they retreated a few steps, maintaining a safe distance. This change made Guaning very puzzled. He couldn't understand why Ma Wei suddenly changed his attitude. However, before he could ask anything, his body was already pulled back a few steps by Ma Wei. It was also at this time that there was movement from inside the prison. Dozens of soldiers carried an injured man out. Chapter 391. Even though the sky was dark, Guaning could still recognize this person with the help of a torch. It was the bandit leader of the Huang bandit army, Cheng Yuan, who guarded Zhaoqing Manor. He immediately cried out, "This is Cheng Yuan, one of the leaders of the Huang bandit army. The memorial regarding him has already been reported to the imperial court. He will be escorted into the capital tomorrow. Why did you bring him out? Did you see clearly? Is that Cheng Yuan?" Yang Chendong ignored Guan Ying's cries and asked Wang Yong, who was staring at him with bloodshot eyes. "Yes, that's him. I would recognize him even if he turned into ashes," Wang Yong said with certainty. In reality, Cheng Yuan was captured by Chen Bo and Lung Feng. Naturally, Wang Yong would know his true appearance. Yang Chendong's question was only to confirm further. Knowing that this person was Cheng Yuan, he nodded and said, "All right, bring him back to the camp." With that, Yang Chendong turned his head and glared fiercely at Ma Wei and Guaning. Then he led the troops away without a word. "Why did you bring Cheng Yuan away? Stop them quickly." Seeing that his merit was about to be taken away, Guaning naturally had a look of indignation on his face as he shouted loudly once again, "Aya, General Guan, bear with it. We are no match for them." Ma Wei, on the other hand, was calm and collected. He stretched out his hand and pulled Ma Wei hard, not letting him run around. Seeing the figures of Yang Chendong's troops slowly disappear into the night, Ma Wei finally let go of Guan Ying's hands. As soon as he let go, Guaning shouted at him angrily, "General Ma, what are you doing? Do you know that the criminal of the imperial court was taken away under our noses?" Of course, this general has seen it, but I have my own difficulties," Ma Wei replied with a helpless look. "Difficulties? What difficulties?" Guaning asked with a puzzled expression and a face full of anger. He knew that if he couldn't explain things clearly, he wouldn't be able to get through this ordeal. With a guilty look, Ma Wei whispered the story of how he embezzled the money that the mercenaries used to buy the pork. What? After hearing what had happened, Guaning was naturally furious. He shouted in a roaring tone, "General Ma, you are really bold. How can you do such a thing?" "Sure." Ma Wei stuck out his index finger to cover his mouth and said in a pleading tone, "General Guan, there's no other way. If you want to lead soldiers, you have to give them some benefits. Otherwise, who would listen to you? Isn't that the only thing we can do? You—" At this moment, Guan Ying's face was filled with anger. He pointed at Ma Wei, not knowing what to say. In the end, they were on the same side. In the eyes of the imperial envoy, Ma Wei's action was probably also his own idea. It was no wonder that the slap in the face came with a wave of his hand. Forget it, forget it. In the end, he was in the wrong first. He couldn't blame others. Although Guaning was angry, he had no choice but to swallow the bitter fruit at this moment. Ma Wei saw that his emotions had stabilized and said in an insatiable tone, "General Guan, now that things have come to this, can we write a battle report and say that Cheng Yuan bit his tongue and committed suicide in prison?" "Absolutely not." Guaning hurriedly waved his hand, but he was afraid that Ma Wei would misunderstand. So he said in an explaining tone, "It's not that I don't want to do this, but the brocade guards are everywhere. Presumably, tonight's matter will be reported to the emperor through secret channels. It's fine if we speak the truth, but if there is even a trace of falsehood, it would be deceiving the emperor. Do you know the severity of this?" It was Ma Wei's turn to change his expression. He quickly cupped his fist and said, "Thank you for your reminder, General Guan. I was reckless." "Forget it. It's not a big deal. From the beginning of the battle, the National Treasury has never given enough food to the Guangdong guards. The emperor knows about this. I'm sure the emperor, with his wisdom, can understand our actions." Guaning thought for a bit and still spoke his opinion. He was afraid that Ma Wei would have too many thoughts. On the battlefield, it was not a good thing for a general to have psychological pressure. "I hope so," Ma Wei said with a face that was praying for Buddha's protection. In reality, he was somewhat afraid. Fortunately, the silver this time was not for his own use. It was because the military was lacking in food. With his heart set on serving the country, he calmed down a lot. On the other side, Yang Chendong led his troops into the city to capture people and calmly retreated. Only after they left the city gates did the Lung Feng troops put away the guns in their hands with waning interest. To these Lung Feng, their hearts were filled with pride, and their strength was tyrannical. Even the southern Ming army was nothing in their eyes. If the sixth young master gave the order, not only would they not be afraid, they would even be unusually excited to fight. This was the ability to use the hearts of an army. To become an invincible army, one must first have the mentality and courage to not fear the armies of the world. Now, it seemed that they had already done it. This courage infected every soldier. Even Peng Yu and Ba Daojiang, who had just joined the guard squad and had witnessed the entire process, were filled with excitement. This was especially so for Ba Daojiang. This could be said to be the first time he had seen someone who dared to make the southern Ming army suffer. This scene left a deep impression on him and made him extremely curious about the Lung Feng troops. He was also proud that he was one of them. His first sense of belonging came from tonight's operation. Compared to the Huang bandit army that he had joined before, the Lung Feng troops were too strong, and the southern Ming army was too weak. After joining such an army, even if someone wanted to chase him away, it would be very difficult for him to leave. Wang Yong also stood in the group. At this moment, he was staring at the bound Cheng Yuan. In his eyes, there was only this person, The scene of the Wang family's hundreds of people dying tragically appeared in his mind from time to time. At the entrance of the military camp, someone had already sent the news after Yang Qindong, and the others had left the city. At this moment, the gates of the camp were wide open. Commander Luo Pa and political commissar Kong Jia had already led the soldiers to line up and wait. When they saw the sixth young master's figure approaching, the two of them stood at attention and saluted. "It's fine. Just arrange for people to be on guard. The other soldiers can go and rest. Oh, right. Hand Cheng Yuan over to Wang Yong for revenge." Yang Qindong rode into the military camp. Then everything in the military camp fell silent again. After arranging for someone to give Wang Yong a military tent and sending the bound Cheng Yuan in, Yang Qindong did not bother about this matter anymore. Instead, he went directly to his own tent to rest. First Madame Hu Yan, third Madame Shui, and Miss Su Monair were all waiting here. When the two madams heard that Yang Qindong had left the military camp at night and that the entire military camp was under martial law, they were naturally worried. Su Monair saw that the two madams did not go to rest, so she did not go to sleep by herself. Besides, she was also very curious about what Yang Qindong was doing, so she also stayed. She had not been by Yang Qindong's side for a long time. Speaking of which, the two of them had not even had a chance to be alone. As a result, the sixth young master still gave her a mysterious feeling. Of course, Su Monair had tried different ways to ask Hu Yan and Madame Shui about this loyal and courageous duke. However, the two madams were very smart. They would say what they should, and would not say anything more than what they should not. This made Yang Qindong even more mysterious. Tonight, the military camp was suddenly under martial law. Even outside the tent where Yang Qindong usually chatted and ate with the madams, there were more guards. How could this change escape Su Monair's eyes? She carefully observed, and her heart was filled with shock. What does this young master want to do? Will he be in danger? That shouldn't be the case. Based on the confidence he displayed on the battlefield, I really don't know who could threaten him. He should be fine. When thinking of this, Su Monair herself did not know that she was already faintly worried about Yang Qindong. As for why she thought so, she was afraid that she could not figure it out for the time being. Su Monair did not stop all this until Yang Qindong returned to the military camp tent safely. Even when Yang Qindong's gaze casually swept over her, she blushed for a while. As people said, everyone loved beautiful women. How could a hero not be loved by beautiful women? Sixth young master is back. My husband is back. Hu Yan and Madame Shui stood up one after another. Their concern was completely expressed on their faces and words. "Haha, I went out to do some small things. I've made Yan, and Shui, worry. It's really my fault. How about this? In order to make up for it, both of you can stay here tonight." Ha ha ha. Yang Qindong's face was not serious at all. Instead, it was full of tenderness and sweetness. As soon as he said this, Hu Yan and Madame Shui in the tent both blushed and became hot. They were shy and happy. They were happy to have a husband who loved them so much. However, it was inevitable that they would feel embarrassed to say such words of love in front of so many people at the same time. This was not the future. On the street, there were people who courted and kissed in public. The onlookers would even give them their blessings. If all this happened at this time, it would only attract people's sidelong glances. It was normal for people to feel ashamed. Yang Qindong's action made the two madams very shy. Even the two madams' personal maids, Xiao Qing and Xiao Wei, blushed and lowered their heads. They were very embarrassed. Su Monair's face was even more embarrassed. At this time, her face was red and swollen, as if she had a fever. After hearing this, she did not even dare to raise her head. She just bowed and almost ran out of the tent with the help of her maid, Xiao Yun. Behind her came Yang Chendong's laughter. Chapter 392. Sixth Young Master. Miss Su is not married yet. She is very thin-skinned. If you do this, she will inevitably feel embarrassed. Hu Yan walked forward and took the initiative to remove the military windbreaker that Yang Chendong was wearing. Then she said with a coquettish expression, "Ha!" Who asked her to come over and join in the fun for no reason. I didn't invite her either, Yang Chendong said casually. Then he stretched out his hand and hugged Hu Yan's slender waist. Hu Yan's face was filled with happiness. When she was hugged, she did not show any signs of rejection. Instead, she said to her personal maid, "Xiao Qing, quickly bring the hot water over. Third sister, and I will serve my husband to bathe." On the other side, Su Moner hurried back to her military tent. Even after she sat down again, her heart was still beating fast. The maid, Xiao Yun, said in an extremely dissatisfied voice, "Miss, this sixth young master of the Yang family is really something. He knows that Miss is still here, yet he said such shameless words. He really doesn't respect others." "Xiao Yun, be quiet." Su Moner's body shook when she heard this. Then she said in a slightly stern voice, "Xiao Yun, you can't say such things in the future. You have to understand that we came here of our own free will. No one forced us. Do you know? If he insists on chasing us away because of your words and actions, then how will we achieve the goal of this trip? Even if I die, I won't be able to face my family." After Su Moner's expression became serious, Xiao Yun had already shut her mouth. When she saw that her master's expression became more and more serious as she spoke, and her eyes were about to turn red, she hurriedly came forward. "Miss, Xiao Yun was wrong. I won't dare to do it again in the future. Xiao Yun, it's not that I have to scold you. I also know that you are fighting for justice for me, but who asked me to be born like this? At this moment, I finally saw the hope of revenge. Even if I have to risk my life, I have to give it a try. So, we can't make a single mistake in the future. You understand?" "Miss, Xiao Yun understands. But do you really trust him that much? If we really do it, will he really fulfill his promise?" Xiao Yun nodded in agreement. At the same time, there was a trace of suspicion in her expression. Towards Xiao Yun's question, Su Moner was also unable to give the most correct answer. But in order to avenge her family, what else could she do other than choose to believe? Therefore, she could only nod and shake her head as she said, "I don't know either, but he shouldn't go back on his word. He wouldn't lie to me, right? Miss, let's hope so. Let's hope our sacrifice is worth it. All right, it's late. Miss, you should sleep first." Xiao Yun sighed in her heart. She didn't know if what Miss was doing was right or wrong, but there was one thing that was not wrong, and that was that she would definitely follow by Miss's side. Even in the face of death, she would not retreat half a step. That night, Su Moner couldn't sleep. After that, she even had a nightmare. That was, she had completed her mission, but the person who promised her didn't avenge the Su family. On the contrary, the sixth young master of the Yang family, who was harmed by her, even came to question her with a bloody face. She was scared half to death in her dream. That night, Yang Chendong naturally slept extremely well. Hugging left and right, it didn't take long for him to enter a sweet dream. He really slept all the way until dawn. That night, Wang Yong didn't sleep at all. First, he cut Cheng Yuan over 100 times. If he hadn't used a cloth to gag the other party's mouth earlier, he was afraid that the miserable screams that night would have caused the entire military camp to be unable to sleep peacefully. After killing Cheng Yuan, Wang Yong knelt in front of Yang Chendong's tent until dawn, until Yang Chendong came out for his morning exercise. When Yang Qindong came out of the tent in camouflage clothes, Tiger's mane, who was guarding outside, jogged over. "Young master, he's been kneeling here for most of the night. Chung Yuan was also killed by him." Got it. Send him to the auxiliary regiment like this. Let him learn to abide by the rules first and wash away the evil aura on him. Yang Qindong nodded lightly. Then he brought Beta Persei, Qiu Vi, Pengyu, Ba Daojiang, and the others from the first guard team and started jogging in the military camp. Yang Qindong didn't want to keep all the capable people by his side, especially people like Wang Yong, who had a strong evil aura. If he didn't know the rules, Yang Qindong would rather not have him than keep a bomb by his side. But thinking about it, if Wang Yong really had the ability, he would climb up step by step and eventually become a true warrior. 1451 AD, the second year of Tianshan, the third year of Baiming, the 6th month of Jingtai. The Guangdong Yellow Bandit Army began their final frenzied counterattack, with Wuzhou Prefecture and Xuanzhou Prefecture as the center. In the north, at Mengzhu Ridge, Heavenly King Chui Yen led 20,000 troops and was ambushed by the 2nd Regiment, Kong Chuanxin's 3rd Battalion, 2 auxiliary battalions, and Pingle's General Hisheng. After the battle, Heavenly King Chui Yen died. Less than 10% of the 20,000 troops escaped. In the south, Heavenly King's son Jianglong had just left the city when he was met with the 2nd Regiment, Wu Sheng's 1st Battalion, 2 auxiliary battalions, and Xiao's General Yu Guang's fierce attacks. After losing, he lost Gaozhou Prefecture and retreated to Laizhou Prefecture. Facing the 40 rocket launchers, he couldn't defend the city and retreated to the seaside to leave. However, not long after, there was no more news. What the others did not know was that the Yang family's navy was already waiting for them at sea. Under the personal leadership of the Navy's first commander Yu Guang, in less than an hour, the ship that Sun Jianglong and his 15,000 men were on was destroyed at sea. Another 13,000 survivors were salvaged, while over 1,000 others lost their lives in the sea. In the west, with Xuanzhou Prefecture as the starting point, Heavenly King Ru Honghai led 30,000 troops to test the waters of Nanning Prefecture and Liuzhou Prefecture of Guangxi. However, because the enemy was well prepared and had the advantage in numbers, the attacks were neutralized. In the end, after losing 10,000 troops, they retreated to Xuanzhou Prefecture to rest. At this point, Huang Yuliang's so-called four-sided attack strategy had completely collapsed. Not only that, the east and north of Wuzhou Prefecture had already been stationed by the southern Ming army to suppress the bandits. At this moment, the people in the city were in a state of panic. Some of the leaders also had their own thoughts and plans. This was already the 3rd day since Yang Qindong brought troops to Wuzhou Prefecture. Ever since he arrived 3 days ago, he didn't immediately attack the city. On the contrary, he ordered people to defend it tightly. From time to time, the drums of the army would sound, causing the Huang bandits in the city to be like birds startled by the twang of a bow. Kong Lingxin's 3 battalions to the north also had the same attitude. They also surrounded the enemy without attacking, and their war drums beat loudly. Yang Qindong's actions had once confused Guaning and Ma Wei. The two of them walked into the large military tent and came in front of the 6th young master, Imperial Envoy. Once the 2 generals entered the tent, they cupped their fists and bowed. "The 2 generals have come. Serve tea." Yang Qindong wasn't wearing a military uniform. Instead, he wore a normal green robe. Just from this, it could be seen that he didn't have any desire to fight. At this moment, he was holding a brush and practicing calligraphy. No need. Guaning waved his hand and refused the good intentions. He raised his head to look at Yang Qindong and said in a serious tone, "Imperial Envoy, I don't know why the Huang bandits are right in front of you, but you must surround them and not attack. Please teach me." Guan Ying's attitude was even cold. Yang Chendong saw all of this and let out a long breath in his heart. At the very beginning, Guan Ying had treated him with this attitude. Yang Chendong didn't pay attention to it. Instead, he used practical actions to wake the other up. He let him know what it meant to shock the world with a single brilliant feat. Guan Ying's attitude towards him had changed completely after the victory at the Battle of Canton Prefecture City. However, ever since he openly snatched the captive Cheng Yuan in Zhaoqing Prefecture, the relationship between the two had clearly changed. They became much more unfamiliar. Now, he had directly come to question him. It could be seen that this person truly had a problem with him. At some point in time, Yang Chendong even had the thought of recruiting him for his own use. Guan Ying was indeed the talent. At least, he was much more pragmatic than some of the other Ming dynasty generals. However, a general of the Southern Ming dynasty was still a general of the Southern Ming dynasty. His heart was still more inclined towards the Great Ming. This kind of person could be called a loyal official, but could also be called a foolishly loyal general. They all had a similar characteristic. They wouldn't easily change their original intentions. In other words, it was very difficult to change the mentality of these people. Take Yu Qian, for example. He was also foolishly loyal. However, Yang Chendong had spent a lot of effort on him. Under the influence of nearly a year in Crimson City, even a stone's heart could melt. Finally, the environment changed a person. Yu Qian had become an important official of the Yang Xie dynasty. He was in charge of the affairs of Crimson City and the nearby cities. He had also displayed his ability to manage everything in an orderly manner. Yu Qian could be changed because in Yang Chendong's heart, he was a very capable person. He was worth the price to attack his heart. However, although Guan Ying was a good general, he wasn't unique. In the new Yang Xie dynasty army, there were no lack of good generals. There were even a few who had shown their talents as commanders. Since that was the case, why would he spend so much effort on Guan Ying? Originally, Yang Chendong didn't have much hope. Naturally, when he saw Guan Ying's attitude, he wasn't angry. On the contrary, when faced with his question, he continued to practice his calligraphy as he spoke with an indifferent expression. Surround but don't fight? Naturally, it's because there are too many Huang bandits in the city. With our small number of soldiers, we can't take them all down. Since that's the case, it's better to slowly wear them down. You've also seen that starting today, there are already Huang bandits coming out of the city to join us. Although there aren't many of them, only a dozen or so, it's still a good start. I believe that if I slowly endure like this, in less than half a year, the Huang bandits in the city will collapse on their own. Chapter 393. What Yang Chendong said was an understatement, and the method was indeed appropriate. Based on what he said, the Huang bandit army would not all surrender in half a year. However, it would be much easier to attack the city at that time. However, how could Guan Ying wait for half a year? During the chaos in Yunnan, the Southern Ming army was forced to retreat step by step. The initial problem had become an existence that threatened the foundation of the country. In comparison, the Huang bandit army was not worth mentioning, especially as the heavenly kings were either destroyed or fled in defeat. They had long become an existence that was difficult to achieve. A real man standing in the world had to do something that shocked the world. Thus, although Guan Ying was still in Guangdong, his mind had long flown to the battlefield in Yunnan, thousands of li away. He wanted to go there and show off his skills. However, if he wanted to go to Yunnan, the matter in Guangdong had to be resolved first. This was one of the main reasons why he had come to urge Yang Chendong. Wait, The imperial envoy can wait, but I cannot. Right now, the war in Yunnan is not going smoothly. The emperor and Minister Quang are endlessly worried. They only hope that after resolving the matter of the Huang bandit army, they can use the power of the country to quell the chaos in Yunnan. So, I asked the imperial envoy to send troops. Standing there, Guanning once again cupped his fist and spoke. At this moment, he was no longer like a subordinate. Instead, he was like a superior giving orders. Guan Ying's words fell into Yang Chendong's ears. He had no choice but to stop writing and stand. He then looked straight ahead and said to Guanning, I have said that the Huang bandit army is powerful. Now is not the best time to attack the city. I will not say this a second time. Guanning, you may leave. He did not call him General Guan, and instead directly called him by his name. This already expressed Yang Chendong's anger. Ma Wei, who was accompanying Yang Chendong, saw that Yang Chendong was angry. He immediately winked at Guanning. It was clear that he didn't want him to continue talking. However, since Guanning had come with a determined heart, he would not back down because of one sentence. After hearing Yang Chendong's words, he shook his head. Fine. Since the imperial envoy does not think the time is right, I request to lead troops to attack the city. Please allow it. Approved. Yang Chendong agreed, without hesitation. Since this person was determined to do so, he could not stop him. He would just fulfill his wish. He had not thought that Yang Chendong would agree so readily. Guanning was first surprised, then his eyes showed gratitude. Thank you, Imperial Envoy. Guanning left, followed by Ma Wei. As soon as they left the tent, Tiger's Mane, who was standing at the side, was puzzled. Young master, why did you agree to his request? He's a good general, and he's smart. This young master is just helping him. I hope he can be a good opponent in the future. After saying that, Yang Chendong lowered his head and continued to practice his calligraphy, leaving Tiger's Mane standing there at a loss. Tiger's Mane could feel that there was a hidden meaning in the young master's words, but he still needed to figure it out himself. But he really could not figure it out for a while, so his gaze fell on Beta Persei, who was standing on the other side. Feeling Tiger's Mane's gaze, Beta Persei dodged again and again, turning a blind eye. It was not for any other reason, but because he also could not understand the hidden meaning in the young master's words. For him, there was no need to worry about these complicated things. He only needed to protect the young master's safety. As for Tiger's Mane, if he wanted to think about it, then he could think about it. If he wanted to have a headache, then he could. Seeing that Beta Persei did not look at him, Tiger's Mane secretly scolded him for being an idiot, but then he also laughed. He could not figure it out himself. So how could he not be an idiot? Not long after Guanning and Ma Wei had walked out of the tent, the latter asked in confusion, General Guan, why are you so aggressive? The imperial envoy is not to be trifled with. Of course, I know he is not to be trifled with. I am just expressing my position. Guanning stood still and then let out a long breath as if he was very relaxed. Expressing your position? Ma Wei's face was full of confusion. Yes, expressing your position. General Ma is different from me. You are the commander of the Guangdong Guards, and Guangdong has just experienced war. I'm afraid you will need to stay here to guard for a while. After everything is settled, I will return to Jingdo. When the time comes, I will be rewarded. Under the glory, I will naturally be envied. It is inevitable that there will be villains who will slander the emperor. At this time, falling out with the imperial envoy is expressing my position. This way, I will not be suspected by others. This is one of the reasons. Although these few battles seem to be going smoothly, in reality, it is all due to the efforts of the imperial envoy and the mercenaries. We have always been dispensable existences. In order to prove ourselves, we need to fight a real battle. This is also where we have the opportunity to perform. Guanning spoke the thoughts in his heart completely because he knew Ma Wei would not be able to return to Jingdo to take up a post for a while. To people who could not threaten him, he could open up some of his heart. Of course, if he didn't make the matter clear, Ma Wei would probably not fully cooperate with him. This would also be very difficult for him to take down Wuzhou. This was also one of the important reasons. After being said like this, Ma Wei finally understood. After sighing in his heart about Guan Ying's careful thinking and long-term vision, he immediately expressed his position. General Guan, since it is like this, I will fully cooperate in the attack on Wuzhou. We will fight however you want. Good. I have already ordered people to make the scaling ladders and other items needed to attack the city. They should be ready in a day. At that time, we will attack the city with all our strength. The great merit will be right in front of us. Guanning wanted Ma Wei to say this, so he immediately spoke excitedly. Good, Ma Wei said in a similarly excited tone. During the chaos in Guangdong this time, as the commander of the Guangdong Guard, he was not able to quell the bandits at the first moment. He was originally guilty. Now that he had the opportunity to take the blame, of course, he did not want to let it go. The two generals had the same goal. After returning to their tent, they began to prepare enthusiastically. A day later, when the wooden scaling ladders were completed, the attack on the city began. Within Wuzhou Prefecture City, in a large courtyard, a new signboard was hung high up. The two large words, Zhu Manor, were written on it. This was the manor of Zhu Fangyong, one of the leaders of the Huang bandit army. As a chess piece that Yang Qindong had placed in the Huang bandit army, Zhu Fangyong's performance was exceptional. After saving Huang Yuliang's life and losing 3 of the 4 heavenly kings, he had become one of young Master Huang's trusted aides. Of course, Zhu Fangyong was clear that Huang Yuliang was both wary of him and using him, wary because of the other's nature. Using him was because there was no better general to choose from. Fortunately, Zhu Fangyong had never been of the same mind as Huang Yuliang. Thus, he was able to deal with this situation safely. As a trusted aide that Yang Qindong had placed here, he knew the direction of the situation better than anyone else in the city. He even had a rough guess of where the next step would be. Originally, everything was within his expectations. However, the Ming army suddenly attacked the city this morning. This was something that Zhu Fangyong could not understand. Based on the previous plan, they should first surround the city and wait for the morale of the city to fall into chaos before making their next move. However, why did they suddenly attack the city? Had there been a change in the plan? However, he should have been notified first. Just as Zhu Fangyong was feeling uneasy about the matter in front of him, the person in charge of communications, Lung Feng, finally appeared. The person who came was dressed as a farmer delivering vegetables to outsiders. The reason he was called before Zhu Fangyong was because the general wanted to know the price of vegetables in the city. Zhu Fangyong was deeply trusted by Huang Yuliang, so it was normal for him to be worried. The person who came was dressed in rough clothes. Even his face was full of wrinkles and his skin was dark. Under this kind of appearance, it was difficult for anyone to suspect that he was not a vegetable farmer. In reality, the person who came was disguised. This was one of the necessary methods to become an elite spy of the Security Bureau. I am 007. You can call me 007. This is a token. When the vegetable farmer arrived in the bedroom, he no longer had the silly grin and hunched posture that he used to have in front of outsiders. Instead, he straightened his back, took out a golden token from his bosom, and presented it to Zhu Fangyong. The golden tablet was made by the military factory in Crimson City. Many modern elements were added to it. Even if others wanted to disguise it, it was impossible to do so. Zhu Fangyong had seen such a tablet before. That person was codenamed 013. Now that 007 had appeared, it was clearly of a higher level. He immediately cupped his fist and said, "Brother 007, you've worked hard. We are all working for the sixth young master. This is our duty. It can't be considered hard. However, I'm afraid that after this, Commander Zhu will really have to work hard." 007's expression carried a trace of seriousness. Following this, he explained the matter of the Ming army taking the initiative to attack, as well as the method the sixth young master had proposed to deal with it. The sixth young master's meaning is that the Ming army outside the city can be considered an elite division of the southern Ming Empire. If possible, it would be best to use the head of the Huang bandit army to exhaust them. Then, when the time is right, the next step of the plan can be carried out. 007 spoke as he took out a secret letter and handed it to Zhu Fangyong. "Commander Zhu, please open it on the spot and then burn it in front of me. This will allow this subordinate to return with an explanation." "Well said, well said." Zhu Fangyong knew that since 007 had said this, then the secret letter had to be burned. This was actually for his own good, to prevent any evidence from being left behind. Opening the secret letter, Yang Qindong's handwriting jumped into his eyes. When Zhu Fangyong saw the sixth young master's overall plan, he couldn't help but nod his head. "Good, good. The sixth young master's plan is good. This commander will carry it out seriously." After speaking, the dense letter was burned into ashes. Another quarter of an hour passed, and the farmer walked out of the study with a fawning look on his face. In his hand was a piece of 5 taels of silver. His smile was so brilliant that the wrinkles on his face seemed to be able to squeeze a bunch of flies to death. Chapter 394. The Ming army had started to attack the city. Guan Ying didn't just do it for the sake of showing off. Before the battle, he had indeed done a lot of things. One of the most important things was to learn the management methods of the mercenary army. He recruited a lot of strong captives into the army and then took care of them. He also said that whoever could make a great contribution in the next battle would be rewarded with money, meat, and even an official position. This was also Guan Ying's decision to make an exception. Normally, people who were guilty would not even be able to obtain the status of a good citizen. However, to be able to do well, he actually promised an official position and wealth. Just from this point, he had really put in a lot of effort. Not talking about the official position, just the fact that before entering the battlefield, he had given the attacking soldiers a full meal and provided them with enough meat was enough to make many people shed tears of gratitude. The ancients also paid attention to being a ghost with a full stomach before they died. Legend had it that when they went to the netherworld, they would not suffer too much. Now that they had eaten and drunk their fill, for some people, they had no regrets. Using them to attack the city was indeed shocking. Just the first wave of attack had allowed them to rush up to the top of the city tower of Wuzhou City. If Zhu Fangyong had not brought people over in time, this wave of attack might have broken through the city. Reality proved that as long as one used the right method, the morale of the army could be used. He called the original Huang bandit captives to the training grounds of the camp. With good wine and meat, General Guan Ying, whose face was filled with excitement, was planning the attack plan for the next day. Outside the camp, some of the rich people who were originally in the Wuzhou house brought good wine and meat to help the army. To them, there were too many immovable assets in the city. The earlier they took down the city, the earlier they could take back what belonged to them, and the earlier they could return to their normal lives. Within the mercenary camp, it was extremely quiet. Apart from the normal training of the soldiers, there was no other movement. Inside the large tent, It was not as peaceful as it seemed from the outside. Commander Luopa, Commander Lujua, and the others were listening to the battle reports from the front lines, waiting for the latest orders from the sixth young master. Everyone was in the tent, listening attentively to the reports from the scouts they had sent out about the scene of the siege today. When they talked about how the Ming army had actively attacked the city, how the first wave of attacks had charged up the city tower without any hesitation, and how they had almost taken down Wuzhou City, everyone's face was filled with shock. Since when did the Ming army possess such powerful combat strength? In their eyes, the Ming army was just a bunch of weaklings. They could bully the common people, but when they really faced the bandits, they would probably reveal their cowardly nature. They are not real Ming soldiers. They were chosen from the remaining captives we picked up. Guaning imitated us. After providing them with a few meals, he promised them that they would be promoted and become rich after the siege. Yang Qindong saw that everyone was discussing fervently below, with faces filled with disbelief. Thus, he explained the real reason. After saying all this, Yang Qindong's gaze swept across the crowd and continued, "Reality has proven that arrogance will definitely lead to mistakes. Luckily, this time the Ming army was dealing with the yellow bandits. What if they were targeting us? If we were arrogant, wouldn't we be at a disadvantage?" Facing Yang Qindong's question, the officers first looked at each other. Then, the commander of the auxiliary troops, Lu Zhua, stood out and said, "Sixth young master, we have the most advanced firearms in the world. Even if they were to come, we would not be afraid of them. We will definitely wipe them all out." Yes, yes. The other officers also nodded their heads, clearly agreeing with this point of view. Yang Qindong, who was sitting at the head of the table, saw that the officers were still full of confidence and could not help but twitch the corner of his mouth. He said with a somewhat sarcastic tone, "Yes, we have the most advanced firearms in the world. This is our advantage, and perhaps our only advantage. Perhaps once we lose our weapons, we are no different from the Ming army. If we are heavily surrounded, how many bullets can you bring? There will be a day when you run out of bullets. At that time, won't we be surrounded like dumplings and be completely wiped out?" At this moment, the officers were dumbfounded. They suddenly realized that they originally thought that they were invincible, but after analyzing it, it seemed that the truth was not so. Therefore, we are not strong enough. If we want to become the strongest army in the world, it is not enough to just have advanced weapons. We also need a strong heart and a strong will to fight. No matter what kind of enemy we meet, we will not be afraid and will not take a step back. From today onwards, the training will be doubled. Other than firearms, everyone will also have to seriously practice the use of cold weapons and the 3-3 system. In short, no matter what, even if our soldiers are unarmed, they must have the confidence and certainty to defeat any enemy." Yang Qindong suddenly stood up and said with an incomparably sharp voice, "Yes." The officers below all stood up. The sixth young master had pointed out everyone's shortcomings, so they had to correct them. This was not as simple as following orders. At the crucial moment, a well-trained army would save their own lives. After having a unified order, the military camp began to get busy. Other than the necessary personnel on duty, the other members of the 1st Guard Squad went down to the various platoons to teach the soldiers close combat tactics. For example, Tiger's Mane, Qiu Vi, Ba, Dao Jiang, Peng Yu, and the others, even Wang Yong, who had just joined the auxiliary soldiers, began to get busy. They all became instructor-like figures and began to walk into the military camp. They faced the normal soldiers and taught them the way of fighting. The Ming army and mercenaries were all hurrying their preparations. In the hall of the Wuzhou government yamen, the bandit leader Huang Yuliang was currently raging. He, who had gathered all the generals, first killed the general in charge of defending the city in front of everyone. Then, he rewarded Zhu Fangyong, who had provided assistance. Afterwards, his anger seemed to have subsided greatly. Sitting on the seat of the former Wuzhou Zhizhou, he looked at everyone and said, "You have to know that once the city gate is broken, we will all die, even if it is for your own safety. I ask that everyone do their best. I also ask that everyone follow General Zhu Fangyong's example." Yes, young Master Huang. The high-ranking officers and leaders standing below all agreed. However, there were only a few people who truly listened to these words. Even Huang Yuliang did not have much confidence in his heart. "You can all leave. Manage your brothers well, and be prepared to go up the city gate tower to fight at any time. General Zhu, stay." Waving his hand, Huang Yuliang had an expression of tiredness and irritation. "We will leave." After the other generals all cupped their fists and said this, they left in twos and threes. As they walked, they whispered something. It was clear that they were analyzing the situation in front of them. Some of them were probably even spreading words that were unfavorable to the bandit army. If this were in the past, no one would dare to do all of this. However, 2 of the 4 heavenly kings were dead, 1 was missing, and only 1 was left. In this situation, Huang Yuliang's control over the army was clearly not as good as before. At this moment, it seemed that he could only allow these people to casually say whatever they wanted. There was nothing he could do. Everyone left, leaving only Huang Yuliang, 2 guards, and Zhu Fangyong standing in the middle of the hall. "General Zhu, your performance today was very good. I am very satisfied." Huang Yuliang sighed as he looked at Zhu Fangyong, who was still able to organize a military force to fight against the Ming dynasty in this chaotic world and emerge victorious. This is all due to young master's good fortune. This general does not dare to claim credit. Zhu Fangyong did not forget to flatter Huang Yuliang. "Ha ha ha, good. General Zhu is still the most loyal. This young master can rest assured when doing things." Huang Yuliang, who was extremely comfortable with this flattery, laughed heartily. Soon after, his tone changed. "General Zhu, this young master intends to hand over the task of guarding the city to you. How confident are you?" Zhu Fangyong, who was asked this question, was stunned at first, as if he was not mentally prepared. Then he half knelt and said, "Many thanks to young master for thinking so highly of me. Even if you hand over the defense of the city to me, I will do my best." In Huang Yuliang's eyes, Zhu Fangyong's words of loyalty naturally made him happy. However, what he valued more was how confident Zhu Fangyong was in defending the city. Thus he asked again, "General Zhu, you still haven't said. If I hand over the defense of Wuzhou to you, will you be able to defend it?" Zhu Fangyong slowly raised his head and looked at Huang Yuliang. He said with a serious face, "In reply to young master, I will not be able to defend it." What? Originally, Huang Yuliang thought that even if he could not defend it, Zhu Fangyong would say some tactful words. For example, he would do his best, or he would hold on for a while, etc. He never expected such a direct answer, which caught Huang Yuliang off guard. "You will not be able to defend it. I have 60,000 soldiers, so why can't I defend a small Wuzhou prefecture?" Huang Yuliang asked unhappily. "Young master, please forgive me for speaking so bluntly. You also said that we are in a small Wuzhou prefecture. If we defend it for a long time, we will run out of food and water. If that's the case, there will be chaos before anyone else attacks. If that's the case, how can we defend the city?" Hearing Zhu Fangyong's serious answer, Huang Yuliang's emotions gradually stabilized. "Okay, then what do you think? Young master, based on my thoughts, we must give up on the Wuzhou prefecture." "Give up? Continue. Huang Yuliang frowned as he listened. Yes. After Zhu Fangyong agreed, he said, the art of war says that if we defend for a long time, we will definitely lose. Without reinforcements, defending the Wuzhou prefecture to the death is the worst plan. There might even be no hope. Why not give up on this place and find a new place to settle down? It's like arranging for Ru Honghai to find a new place to settle down and develop. Internally, we can guard the city strictly and delay the Ming army's attack speed. At the same time, we also have to deal with the internal problems. This humble general is not talented, but I have arranged for some people to do some investigations. I found that some generals have long wanted to join the Ming army. If such people stay by our side, not only will they not be of help, but they will also become our cancer and hinder our development. Chapter 395. Zhu Fangyong spoke with fervor and assurance, and Huang Yuliang listened very seriously. He only stopped talking after the time it took for a stick of incense to burn. Then he stared ahead without blinking, waiting for his young master to make the final decision. From Zhu Fangyong's words, Huang Yuliang knew that Zhu Fangyong had put in a lot of effort. At least, he had carefully considered their escape route. More importantly, Zhu Fangyong's words were clear and logical, and he had a plan for how to proceed step by step. This made Huang Yuliang very confident. An army was most afraid of doing things without a goal. This kind of army was like a headless fly and was destined to have problems. From this, it could be seen how important a correct direction was. Huang Yuliang had already secretly approved of Zhu Fangyong's plan, but he still needed to ask for more details. Yes, General Zhu, please stand up. You said that you could let Heavenly King Ru find a new location, but do you have a plan? In reply to young master, I do have a plan. If possible, we can let Heavenly King Ru lead the army to the vicinity of Gaozhou Prefecture. That place is vast and sparsely populated, and the territory is large. There aren't any important towns around it, so it's beneficial for us to move around there. Once the time is right, we can raise our flag again and gather a powerful army. Zhu Fangyong, who was already prepared, explained the plan in one breath. Gaozhou Prefecture? Hearing this location, Huang Yuliang hurriedly searched for it on the map. Then, he said with a suspicious expression, isn't there also a Ming army in Gaozhou Prefecture? Previously, Heavenly King's son Jianglong's army was defeated there. That's right, it's there. However, just like young master said, if you didn't expect us to go there, then the Ming army would be even more surprised. Taking them by surprise is in accordance with the art of war. We will have a chance to appear there when they least expect it. It's precisely because it's not far from the sea that we can escape into the sea if things go wrong. This way, the southern Ming army, which has already restricted the sea, can't do anything to us. When that time comes, we'll be like fish in the sea. Zhu Fangyong nodded heavily with a confident expression. Take them by surprise. Take them by surprise. Huang Yuliang muttered to himself. Then, as if he had made up his mind, he slammed his fist on the desk. All right, let's take them by surprise and kill our way out. How about this? General Zhu's suggestion just now will be approved by this young master. I'll leave the matter of city defense to you. You will also be in charge of those disloyal generals. At the same time, you will also arrange for Heavenly King Ru to secretly attack Gao Prefecture. I hope you won't disappoint me. Otherwise, you know the consequences. The reason he said that he would not be disappointed was because the failure of Zhu Fangyong's policy of attacking everywhere had not only caused the strength of the Yellow Bandit army to shrink greatly, it had also implicated Sun Jianglong and Cui Yin, the two heavenly kings, to die in battle or disappear. This time, he listened to Zhu Fangyong's plan. If something went wrong again, then he would have to doubt Zhu Fangyong's intention. How intelligent was Zhu Fangyong? He naturally understood the hidden meaning in Huang Yuliang's words. He immediately cupped his fist and said, "I'm willing to guarantee with my life that as long as Heavenly King Ru is careful, once you suddenly appear in front of Gao Prefecture City, no one will be able to stop you." "All right. Ha! Then this young master will take advantage of General Zhu's auspicious words." Huang Yuliang's laughter rang out in the hall. He seemed to be in a good mood at this moment. Huang Yuliang trusted Zhu Fangyong again. Even though he knew that there were risks in doing so, he didn't have any better methods to deal with the current situation. Thus, he might as well give it another try. Of course, he didn't completely trust Zhu Fangyong. He still arranged for a group of personal guards to follow Zhu Fangyong and watch his every move. If they discovered that Zhu Fangyong was doing anything improper, they would probably raise their blades and cut off his head. Zhu Fangyong didn't show any signs of resentment towards the fact that someone was watching him. On the contrary, he even entertained these people with good food and drinks. Furthermore, he would bring them along whenever he did something. He acted as if he was innocent and wasn't afraid of being investigated. After gaining Huang Yuliang's trust on the surface, Zhu Fangyong started to do things boldly. First, he captured some of the generals in the Huang bandit army who weren't ready to fight. Then, he stripped them of their military power and made them his subordinates. At the same time, he strengthened the defense of the city and made it look like he was going to fight to the death with the Ming army. Zhu Fangyong's deployment was well-planned and orderly. This caused the Ming army to face a lot of trouble in the next few sieges. There were many casualties in the fierce battle above and below Shuangfang City. In the end, they managed to protect the Wuzhou Prefecture and didn't let the Ming army enter the city. With the city protected, Huang Yuliang was naturally much more satisfied with Zhu Fangyong. At this moment, news came from Heavenly King Ru. They followed Zhu Fangyong's suggestion and suddenly appeared outside Gaozhou Prefecture. As expected, they didn't spend much effort to retake the city. With this, they found a new path of retreat for the Huang bandit army. After hearing this news, Huang Yuliang was naturally elated and had a higher opinion of Zhu Fangyong. As Gaozhou was taken down, the Huang bandit army had a path of retreat. Huang Yuliang started to make arrangements to leave Wuzhou Prefecture. For this, he once again called Zhu Fangyong over and asked him for a plan. After Zhu Fangyong, who was covered in blood and killing intent, entered the Great Hall, there was already a seat waiting for him. According to Huang Yuliang, after this battle, he would promote Zhu Fangyong to one of the 4 heavenly kings. "Thank you, young master," Zhu Fangyong said gratefully. "Ha, Fangyong, there is no need to be angry. Now, can you tell me how we are going to retreat safely?" Huang Yuliang said with a smile. "Yes, young master, this is what I think." Below Wuzhou City, Guaning and Ma Wei rode on their horses tiredly, looking at the Wuzhou Prefecture that they had not been able to take down and the corpses on the battlefield. Their faces were filled with doubt and regret. They could not understand why the seemingly unstable Wuzhou City had almost taken the city in the first attack and still remained standing under the numerous fierce attacks they launched. On the contrary, they had lost soldiers and generals. Putting aside the fact that most of the Huang bandit captives had died in battle, even the original 4,000 Ming soldiers had lost close to 3,000 men. Why had they still not taken the city? After 7 or 8 sieges, including the captives, they had 8,000 men. But now, they did not even have 2,000 men left. Most of them were injured. This was a result that Guaning and Ma Wei could not accept, especially the latter, who had already given the order to stop the siege. Ma Wei was the commander of the Guangdong Guards. No matter if he was a general or a commander, he had to have soldiers under his feet to be able to use his power. But now he had almost used up everything, so it was no wonder that he would suddenly give the order to stop the siege. Guanning did not understand this matter, and had even argued with Ma Wei because of it. In his words, he had lost a lot of men and was under a lot of pressure. The Huang bandit army was also not having a good time. Now, it was up to who could last longer. Perhaps after another fierce siege, they would be able to take down the city tower and take down the Wuzhou prefecture. Ma Wei shook his head and did not agree with Guan Ying's words. Disregarding everything else, even if they took down the Wuzhou prefecture, with the amount of military power he had, it would be difficult for them to do much. They probably did not even have enough people to watch over the captives, so how could they talk about defending the city? Ma Wei very happily rejected Guan Ying's idea of attacking the city again. He prepared to rest and build up strength. He would wait for the internal strife within Wuzhou City to happen, as the imperial envoy had said, so that he could benefit from it. However, just as this plan was prepared, an unexpected situation occurred. The city gates of Wuzhou Prefecture suddenly opened. Thousands of people holding all kinds of weapons charged out and charged into the unprepared Ming army camp. Everything that happened so suddenly was completely out of their expectations. Caught unprepared, they were actually caught off guard by the Huang bandit army. Within the camp, many of the injured soldiers were killed. Even Guanning, because he could not retreat in time, was entangled with people and had an additional knife wound on his body. Fortunately, at the crucial moment, the mercenary army moved out. They held the 9.5 in their hands and shot at the Huang bandit army from a distance. Immediately after, thousands of auxiliary soldiers and temporary auxiliary soldiers suddenly charged out. Under the powerful aura, they quickly crumbled the morale of the Huang bandit army and defeated them in the Ming army camp. After the Huang bandit army soldiers who had left the city were killed or captured, the mercenary army directly charged toward Wuzhou City. Unexpectedly, it went very smoothly. Other than a few banners that the Huang bandit army had stuck into the city tower, all of the Huang bandit army had disappeared. Even most of the common people in the city had been taken away. The Wuzhou prefecture, which was almost empty, was taken down so easily. However, it was clear that Yang Qindong was not satisfied. He called over Guanning and Ma Wei to talk about continuing the pursuit. After the Huang bandit army has lost the Wuzhou prefecture, they have no place to stay. This is the best time to pursue and kill them. Otherwise, once they find a new place and continue to develop, it will not be long before they rise up again and become a problem for the court. Faced with Yang Qindong's righteous words, Guanning and Ma Wei lowered their heads. How could the two of them not understand this logic? It was just that right now they only had 1,000 soldiers. Even if General Pingle brought a few hundred people, there were less than 2,000. They could still defend Wuzhou Prefecture and calm down the situation here. But if they wanted to chase after someone, they really didn't have the strength to do so. The two of them did not speak. Yang Qindong pretended not to understand and asked, "What? Do the two generals have any objections?" No. However, after attacking Wuzhou City for the past few days, our vitality has been greatly damaged. Now, we lack soldiers and are trapped. It is time for us to reorganize. We really do not have the strength to chase after the Huang bandit army. This heavy responsibility will probably fall on the shoulders of the mercenary army and the imperial envoy. Ma Wei and Guanning spoke with pleading expressions. Chapter 396. So it's like this. All right, since this imperial envoy has promised the emperor, then I will definitely completely destroy the Huang bandit army. Thus, we will leave first. If the two generals have finished organizing the military affairs, It won't be too late to catch up. Yang Qindong only pretended to be troubled. After a slight hesitation, he immediately agreed. Naturally, Ma Wei and Guaning were overjoyed that Yang Qindong agreed so readily. In order to express their sincerity, they even sent some of the food in their army to the mercenary camp. Then, they watched as the mercenary army left Wuzhou to chase after the Huang bandit army. Sigh, no matter what, the matter of the Huang bandit army has been taken care of. Soon, we will be able to report to the emperor. Ma Wei muttered to himself. When Guaning heard these words, his self-reproach lessened a lot. What the two of them did not know was that all of this was Yang Qindong's plan. Zhu Fangyong's action of leaving the city was one of his plans. The reason why he did this was because he had an even bigger goal, which was to completely destroy the Huang bandit army. The development of Qiqian City and Ryukyu Island needed people the most. Only with enough people could one do more things, expand one's army, and expand one's own power. It was because of this point that Yang Qindong's plan for the Huang bandit army was not to destroy them, but to make them prisoners. It was only about Ying and Ma Wei. They might be able to get some of the captives to become soldiers, but to get all of them to become their captives and be sent to Ryukyu Island was basically impossible. In order to achieve this goal, the first thing to do was to exhaust the Ming army's power so that they had no time to worry about other things. Thus, he sent a letter to Zhu Fangyong to use war to exhaust the Ming army's power. Using this, Zhu Fangyong could send some of the Huang bandit army's members who did not obey him or had bad attitudes to the battlefield and use the Ming army to eliminate them. Facts had proven that this plan was appropriate and successful. During these days of defending the city, Zhu Fangyong had received Huang Yuliang's trust and delegated power to him. Taking this opportunity, he had successfully eliminated the dissidents. In the end, he had sent those who didn't listen to him or those who were truly evil to the defense of the city tower. Most of the people in the Huang bandit army were people who were forced to join. They were not loyal to young Master Huang and did not have a sense of belonging to the Huang bandit army. As long as they had the right opportunity, they could become good citizens again. When they reached Ryukyu Island, they might even become useful talents there. After the plan was successfully implemented, Yang Qindong led the mercenaries out of the Wuzhou prefecture and headed towards Gaozhou. Even when they were leaving the city, they still brought the gratitude of Ma Wei and General Guaning. Of course, in Yang Qindong's eyes, the more benefits he got from others, the better it would be for him. Quickly inform Battalion Commander Wu Sheng that we can close the encirclement and lock onto the target. After giving the secret order to Tiger's Mane, Yang Qindong turned around to look at the army in his hands. With Kong, Chuanxin's Cold Front 3rd Battalion, and an auxiliary battalion, the army he led had grown even stronger. Adding on the temporary auxiliary soldiers he had recruited along the way, the total number of soldiers had increased to nearly 7,000. Perhaps an army of 7,000 might not be much in the eyes of others, but if these people were mercenaries, they would be able to fight against an army of tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands. Moreover, they would have a high chance of winning. Huang Yuliang listened to Zhu Fangyong's suggestion and first sent his only heavenly king, General Ru Honghai, to attack Gaozhou Prefecture. After occupying the city, he gave up on the entire Wuzhou Prefecture and led most of the citizens to Gaozhou City in the southeast. Huang Yuliang didn't understand why he had to lead 40,000 citizens in Wuzhou Prefecture. However, because Zhu Fangyong's method of dealing with the enemy was very timely, he didn't ask any further. Now that they were out of Wuzhou Prefecture, the remaining 50,000 Huang bandits and 40,000 citizens were walking on the official road. Only then did he have the time to ask for the reason and order someone to call Zhu Fangyong in front of him. General Zhu, you have worked hard this time. You have done well and this young master is very satisfied. However, why did you bring the citizens of Wuzhou Prefecture? General, what can you tell me? Huang Yuliang first expressed his admiration, and then asked the question in his heart. Young master, you are very knowledgeable. You must have heard that water can carry a boat, but it can also capsize a boat. If you want to change the world, you must first obtain the support of the citizens because they are the foundation of a country. This is why I brought them this time. There are also two benefits. Zhu Fangyong, who had been prepared, didn't use much effort to answer this question. Two benefits? What are they? Huang Yuliang became spirited and asked curiously. First, young master didn't forget to take the citizens with you when you left the city. This is enough to prove that you have the citizens in your eyes and treat them as your own people. If this matter spreads out, won't young master's good name spread far and wide? This is a way to buy people's hearts without spending money. Second, when an army marches, there are always things that require manpower. For example, transporting grain, cooking, and washing for the soldiers. We men can't do these things well. With these people, it means we have a lot of free labor. Why not? With their hands free, our soldiers can focus on traveling and recover their energy. Once we fight with the Ming army, they will be able to use their strength better. Isn't this the best of both worlds? General, we have robbed so many cities. Right now, we don't lack grain and even have money left over. Isn't it a good thing that we can use the extra grain to get so many people to work for us? As for when we don't have enough grain in the future, we can think of a way to get them to leave. At that time, no matter where they go, they will think of young master's kindness and want to eat and wear warm clothes with you. If that's the case, once they hear about your news, who wouldn't want to come and seek refuge with you? Why would we worry about not having enough soldiers? Wouldn't the army grow stronger? Zhu Fangyong said a lot in a row. Every time he mentioned something, Huang Yuliang felt his eyes light up. Good, good. General Zhu is indeed farsighted. With General Zhu, there is no need to worry about the world being unstable. Like this, from today onwards, General Zhu will be one of the 4 heavenly kings under this young master. Hearing this reward, Zhu Fangyong's heart was filled with joy. However, he still pretended to be grateful. Many thanks for young master's nurturing. Fangyong will definitely do his best to repay young master's kindness. Ha! Well said, well said. Huang Yuliang laughed heartily. He was happy that he had obtained such a loyal and capable subordinate. However, he didn't know that from now on, his little life was in the hands of others. Zhu Fangyong had officially become one of the 4 heavenly kings. This made his authority grow unprecedentedly. Many military leaders used the opportunity to congratulate him to express their loyalty. As a result, his influence in the Huang bandit army grew larger and larger. In fact, he could even make decisions on many matters without needing to report to Huang Yuliang. All of this gave Zhu Fangyong more support for his plan to complete the 6th young master. Gaozhou Prefecture. After Heavenly King, Ru Honghai used a surprise attack to occupy this place. He gradually became arrogant. As one of the old 4 heavenly kings, Ru Honghai wasn't as brave as Geng Jun, nor as tall as Cui Yin. He wasn't as familiar with naval battles as Sun Jianglong. He was able to become one of the heavenly kings mostly because of his obedient personality. Among the 4 heavenly kings, the one that Huang Yuliang trusted the most was probably the ugly and average-looking Ru Honghai. There was no one else. His luck wasn't bad, and he actually managed to survive until now. He even took over Gaozhou Prefecture and found a path of retreat for his young master. This merit could be said to be great. There was also news in the army that when young Master Huang arrived at Gaozhou Prefecture, Ru Honghai would become the leader of the four heavenly kings. This kind of rumor naturally reached Ru Honghai's ears. It gave him a feeling of complacency, as if he didn't put the heroes of the world in his eyes. Due to his arrogance, the defense of Gaozhou Prefecture became lax. Or it could be said that Ru Honghai never thought that someone would target him. After all, from the news from the scouts, there weren't any Ming army forces near Gaozhou Prefecture. But in reality, there was a cold vanguard unit in Gaozhou City that could take his life. The leader of this unit was the Cold Vanguard 2nd Regiment, 1st Battalion's commander, Wu Sheng. In such a large city, as long as there were sufficient preparations, the existence of 400 people could be concealed without revealing themselves. Not to mention, these 400 people were all well-trained elites who had learned the art of camouflage. Previously, the Gaozhou Prefecture was breached by Wu Sheng and his men, which gave him ample time to hide. When Ru Honghai brought the Huang bandits into the city, the auxiliary camp retreated according to plan. Only Shao Prefecture's General Yu Guang and less than 1,000 people were left here to resist for a while before they couldn't leave. The effective resistance still existed. This strengthened Ru Honghai's belief that the Ming army was inferior to him. It also created enough opportunity for Wu Sheng and his men to stay. As Ru Honghai's troops occupied Gaozhou Prefecture for longer and longer, the time for Wu Sheng's Cold Vanguard unit to act was also getting closer and closer. Inform everyone, it's tonight. Finally, when the scouts of the Security Bureau infiltrated Gaozhou Prefecture and successfully contacted Wu Sheng, the orders from above were also delivered. The Cold Vanguard unit was about to act. Chapter 397. A total of 4 companies of Lung Feng, in addition to Wu Sheng and the other 400 people, they dug out the 9.5 spear and camouflage uniforms that they had hidden in the courtyards and began their night raid. The Lung Feng's movements were orderly and meticulous. Every Lung Feng had their own position. For example, who was in charge of dealing with the sentries, who was in charge of stopping the attack, who was in charge of seizing the city gate, who was in charge of capturing Ru Honghai, etc. All of the plans were assigned to every soldier. As a result, when it was midnight, more than 400 people walked out of the alleys and ran towards their respective targets. The Huang bandit army was caught off guard and did not expect the danger to come from within. In front of the meticulous, agile, and well-armed Lung Feng, most people did not even have the ability to fight back. Among the bodyguards protecting Ru Honghai, there were a few who had decent martial arts skills. Because of their high alertness, they were the first to notice that the atmosphere was not right and sent out a warning signal. Unfortunately, there were too few such experts. Even if they sent out a warning signal, the news could not spread out of the courtyard before the Lung Feng surrounded them began to move. Battalion Commander Wu Sheng took the lead and kicked open the door with the 95 style. Soon after, a series of gunshots rang out, and the 3 strong men who had a foundation in martial arts obediently lay on the ground. When the Lung Feng rushed into the bedroom in the courtyard, they pulled out the trembling Ru Honghai from under the bed. Following Ru Honghai's capture, without a leader, the Huang bandit army in the city fell into chaos. At this moment, the Lung Feng hiding in the dark suddenly made their move. Along with the loud shouts from the city gate, the seemingly majestic auxiliary barracks approached. Finally, the barracks exploded. No matter what kind of army it was, once the barracks exploded, it signaled the beginning of a disaster and defeat. The soldiers fled in all directions. The soldiers did not know their generals, and the generals did not know their soldiers. Once chaos erupted, it was hard for anyone to stop it. Even if the generals were to shout now, there was nothing they could do. There was no way to reverse the situation. Even the elite Cold Vanguard soldiers were helpless against the explosion of the camp. The only thing they could do was to observe the surroundings. Once they discovered any Huang bandits trying to rush out of the camp, they would fire a warning shot. If they couldn't stop them, they would start shooting. In short, they wouldn't allow such chaos to rush out of the camp. The explosion of the camp also indicated that the defeat of the Huang bandit army defending Gaozhou City was set in stone. At this point, Huang Yuliang's path of retreat was completely sealed. At this time, Huang Yuliang was leading 50,000 bandits and 40,000 commoners 80 miles away from Gaozhou City. In the past, with their current marching speed, they would be able to reach Gaozhou Prefecture in 2 to 3 days if they were fast. Once they met up with Ru Honghai's army, they would be able to gather a large force once again. However, all of this was destroyed tonight. Huang Yuliang, who was sleeping, was also woken up by the bodyguards. What's going on? Huang Yuliang suddenly opened his eyes with a face full of fear. Young Master, General Zhu, reported that the scouts discovered a large number of Ming army soldiers 30 miles behind us. Furthermore, they are the most powerful Ming army soldiers wearing camouflage uniforms. The bodyguard said with a slightly hurried voice, "There's such a thing? Didn't we use up a lot of their resources when they attacked the Wuzhou Prefecture? Why do they still have the strength to chase after us?" Huang Yuliang instinctively said this before quickly shutting his mouth. The bodyguard had already said very clearly that the Ming army soldiers that came were wearing camouflage uniforms. It was said that they were the helpers that the southern Ming Emperor, Zhu Qizhen, had invited. Since they weren't normal Ming army soldiers, this kind of army shouldn't have been exhausted. Only then would they have the strength to chase after him. After understanding this point, Huang Yuliang hurriedly put on his jacket. Before he could walk out of the tent, Zhu Fangyong, who was wearing armor, had already walked in. "Young Master, there are pursuers behind us. It seems that we have been targeted. Right now, we need to hurry to Gaozhou City." "Is there no way to stop them?" Gao Yuliang asked, thinking that he would deal with whatever came his way. "It's very difficult. This army has extremely advanced firearms. They can injure our brothers from far away. I'm afraid that it will be very difficult to stop them." When he said this, Zhu Fangyong revealed a defeated expression. Even if Huang Yuliang saw this, he wouldn't doubt that he had tried his best. However, there was still no solution. "If that's the case, then let's go quickly. Once we reach Gaozhou Prefecture, we should be safe with the sturdy city as our cover." For the sake of his own safety, Huang Yuliang made the decision to travel through the night. Yes, this general will go and instruct the army to hurry. When Zhu Fangyong agreed, a trace of joy flashed across his eyes. Everything was just as the sixth young master had imagined. This Huang Yuliang was truly extremely afraid of death. Since this was the case, the following process would be much easier to complete. In the dark night, the army that stretched for dozens of miles set off. From time to time, all sorts of curses could be heard from the crowd. When the sun rose, seen that both the commotion and the commoners were somewhat resistant to traveling after a night in the middle of the night. The Huang bandits were also tired. In addition, they could clearly see the surroundings after the sun rose. The chaotic environment became less and less chaotic until finally it was completely peaceful. After everything calmed down, Heavenly King Ru Honghai was escorted out of the camp by Wu Sheng and Lung Feng. When they saw that their general was captured and they were completely surrounded, the Huang bandits had no choice but to surrender. The captives threw down their weapons and walked out of the camp in batches. Wu Sheng's face was filled with joy. In just this battle alone, they had captured about 15,000 Huang bandits. Most of the people here were strong and healthy. One could imagine how many things they could do when they reached Ryukyu Island. However, just as a smile appeared on his face, a soldier came to report that the Xiaozhou General Yu Guang, who had disappeared for a while, had returned. He was currently waiting at the government office. Oh, the speed of picking peaches is quite fast. Fine. Since they want it, I'll give it to them. However, if they want to take these benefits from me, Wu Sheng, then they won't be able to do so. Let's see what kind of price they can pay. There was a glimmer of light in Wu Sheng's eyes. He had expected that the southern Ming army would appear early in the morning. Even if the other party did not appear, according to the 6th Young Master's plan, Gaozhou Prefecture would have to be handed over. However, taking the initiative to hand it over was one matter. If the other party wanted to take it back, it was another matter. If Wu Sheng didn't use this opportunity to slaughter his opponent, how could he have the ability to be the commander of the main force? In front of Gaozhou City's government office, Wu Sheng brought a group of Lungfeng and saw Yu Guang in armor. Yu Guang was originally riding on a tall horse, but the moment he saw Wu Sheng appear, he consciously jumped off the horse and greeted him with a smile. "Commander Wu, it's been hard on you." Both sides had worked together before. They had forced Sun Jianglong, one of the 4 heavenly kings, into the sea near Gaozhou City and Laizhou City. They could be considered old acquaintances. However, this time, Yu Guang was here to snatch the credit. His expression was naturally a bit unnatural. "Oh, isn't this General Yu Guang? A while ago, I couldn't find you and thought that you had sacrificed your life for the country. Because of this, I felt really bad for a while. Now that I see that you're fine, I'm very happy." After these words were spoken, Yu Guang's face alternated between red and white. Last time, when Ru Honghai brought his army to Gaozhou City, Wu Sheng directly said that he was no match for him and led his army to leave. Yu Guang didn't listen and defended the city for a day. In the end, because he didn't have enough troops, he escaped from Gaozhou City. It was after that there was a gap between the two of them. Now that Wu Sheng said this to him, he was just venting his anger. Yu Guang, who knew that he was in the wrong, didn't listen to Wu Sheng when they defended the city last time. Now that he wanted to take advantage of the situation, his expression was naturally very unnatural. However, when he thought about how he could take the credit for taking down Gaozhou City, it would greatly make up for the crime of losing Gaozhou City last time. He had no choice but to bite the bullet and say, "Yu Guang will remember Commander Wu's concern for me. This time, I still have to thank you for helping Ming take down Gaozhou City." "Oh, this isn't a big deal. If you're willing, I can give you the credit for taking down Gaozhou City and even capturing Ru Honghai alive. However, General, you should also know that many of our brothers have died in this battle. The compensation for their families cannot be neglected," Wu Sheng said in an overbearing manner. When he heard that Wu Sheng was willing to give him all the credit, Yu Guang had long become excited. Good. How about we go into the government office to talk?" "Good. General Yu, please. Commander Wu, please." The two of them entered the Gaozhou City government office, one after the other. What followed was naturally a round of bargaining. After 4 hours of negotiation, Wu Sheng took away 15,000 captives and 200,000 taels of silver from Yu Guang. The amount of silver wasn't much. Furthermore, Yu Guang used his identity as a general of Nanming to borrow it from the rich gentry in Gaozhou City. Even though Ru Honghai had already entered Gaozhou City, this place had also been visited by another heavenly king, Sun Jianglong. However, as the local tyrants, which one of them wasn't a crafty rabbit with 3 burrows, many of them had already buried the silver before the situation turned bad. It wasn't something that the Huang bandits could find in a short period of time. However, Yu Guang used his identity as a general of Nanming to negotiate with the rich gentry and quickly obtained 200,000 silver. Chapter 398. Wu Sheng left after getting the person and the money. At this moment, he still had more important things to do. This was also the most important and final part of the plan. It was very crucial. If not for this, how could a mere 200,000 taels of silver be enough to send him off? Gaozhou City had already changed hands. Huang Yuliang was completely unaware of this matter. It was only when the sky turned dark on the second day that the scouts at the front reported back that Heavenly King Ru Honghai had been captured by the Southern Ming Empire's army. After running for an entire day and night, whether it was the generals, soldiers, or commoners, they were all extremely tired. According to Huang Yuliang's thoughts, he had to get a good night's sleep no matter what. However, when this news came, he completely panicked. He, who had no way out, suddenly lost all hope. At this time, Zhu Fangyong also came in front of Huang Yuliang. "Young master, this matter is sudden, but we still have a way out." "Oh, what other way is there?" Hearing that there was still a way, Huang Yuliang, who had lost all hope for the future, regained a trace of vitality. "Young master, Gaozhou City has been occupied, but we still have Laizhou City. If not, we can still take a ship to the sea. Right now, the most important thing is to immediately arrange for people to scout the way. Also, arrange for people to buy ships with gold and silver. As long as we are on the sea, the Southern Ming army will not be able to do anything to us." Zhu Fangyong said, "That's right. As long as we are on the sea, the Southern Ming army will not be able to do anything to us." "Good, let's do that." Huang Yuliang had completely lost his ability to judge. He really did whatever Zhu Fangyong told him to do. He immediately ordered people to take a lot of gold and silver and prepare to transport it out. Then he arranged for 2,000 trusted soldiers to scout the way to Laizhou City and the sea. These 2,000 people were extremely trusted by Huang Yuliang. Most of them had followed his father, Huang Xiaoyang, into the army and were the most trustworthy existences. Even when he was in trouble, he didn't send these people out. But now, in order to find a suitable escape route, he finally sent these people out. Following the departure of these 2,000 soldiers, the only ones that Huang Yuliang could truly trust or be willing to risk their lives for him were the dozens of bodyguards around him. Because of the sudden incident, the original plan of having a good night's rest was disrupted. The army had no choice but to continue on their journey. For a moment, the curses in the army grew even louder, but this was no longer a problem that Huang Yuliang was concerned about. 30 li behind the Huang Bandit army, the Cold Vanguard army had already stopped. They began to set up camp and cook. With the speed of the Lung Feng soldiers, it was not difficult for them to catch up with the Huang bandits. However, it would be extremely difficult for him to obtain nearly 100,000 gold coins. In order to drive them into the pocket, Yang Chendong did not ask the warriors to travel through the night. Instead, he followed them at a leisurely pace. When it was time to eat, one would eat. When it was time to sleep, one would naturally need to sleep. Not only that in the military camp, other than the necessary troops who were responsible for keeping watch at night, the other soldiers also had a party after dinner. Third Madame Shui and Miss Su Monaire also offered up songs and dances. It was truly a joyous scene. In the process of chasing an opponent, it was probably rare to see an army like Yang Chendong who could be at a leisurely pace and even have a party in the military camp. From this, it could be seen that the result of this battle had probably been predicted by the youngest, loyal, and daring general of the Ming dynasty. Furthermore, everything was developing smoothly according to his plan. It was late at night. The soldiers who were having a party had all returned to their tents to rest. However, some of the tents were still lit. For example, in the tent that Su Monaire was in, the lights were not extinguished. Not only that, but the master and servant were sitting there and chatting without any signs of sleepiness. "Miss, this imperial envoy is truly carefree." This is war, yet he is not in a hurry to travel. He even has this party that he speaks of. What is he thinking? Servant Xiao Yun thought about how during the party, Yang Qindong was beside the bonfire and dancing with the soldiers under him. She felt that it was unbelievable. In her impression, all of the important officials were dignified and serious. They had a straight face every day, as if they had the words "do not get close to strangers" written all over their faces. How could there be anyone like Yang Qindong who would be so close to normal soldiers? However, thinking about it from another perspective, this imperial envoy was truly too young. It was not strange for him to have such actions. However, when she thought about how this kind of person was the target of the master and servant, someone they had to kill, she couldn't help but feel a wave of self-blame and depression in her heart. In the end, Xiao Yun was still young. Although she knew what her mission was, she was still young and could easily be influenced and changed by the surrounding environment. In the beginning, she had heard that this imperial envoy was very lustful and would not shrink from any crime. Originally, there was no burden in killing this kind of person. Not to mention, once the goal was achieved, the young miss would be freed. With all these benefits, Xiao Yun agreed without much thought. However, after these days of contact, she realized that the truth was different from what she had heard. Let's just say that Yang Qindong was lustful. It had been nearly 2 months since the young miss had taken the initiative to send herself to his door, but Yang Qindong had not done anything frivolous. He even turned a blind eye to it. This was completely different from the lustful person that was said to be. Not to mention a lustful person with Su Moner's beauty, even an ordinary man would not be able to remain indifferent. This could be seen from the cold eyes that looked at the young miss. However, Yang Qindong was able to control himself. Not only did he never show anything, but he also had very little contact. On the contrary, he took great care of them in their daily lives. In the past 2 months, Xiao Yun had come into contact with many new things, such as toothpaste, toothbrush, soap, perfume, mirror, and all kinds of beautiful clothes. Yang Qindong had sent many people to deliver these things, but he did not show himself. Xiao Yun couldn't understand all of this. She couldn't understand. In fact, not only the maid, Xiao Yun, but even the master, Su Moner, could not figure it out. As the head of the courtesans by the Qinhuai River, she usually came into contact with all kinds of men. Among them, there were princes and nobles with good family backgrounds, some young masters who boasted of their talents, and some Casanova young master with rich families. But no matter what, there was something in the way these people looked at her. It was a kind of possessiveness, a kind of desire for her body. However, this kind of gaze had never appeared in Yang Qindong's eyes, so much so that Su Moner suspected whether he was a normal man. However, this kind of suspicion was completely dispelled after she came into contact with the 2 madams, Hu Yen and Madame Shui. Sometimes, when she went to greet them in the morning, she could clearly see the satisfaction in the eyes of the 2 madams. Although Su Moner was still a virgin, she had been taught about the matters between men and women by her mothers. Naturally, she could see some of these things. The spring that flashed on his face was definitely not something that could be faked. Then the question was, why did such a normal man turn a blind eye to her? Could it be that he already knew her mission to get close to him? That was even more impossible. Even if he knew everything, he should have killed her earlier. Why did he still treat her like this? Why did he give her so many good things, but not touch her? What did he want? The unknown always made people uneasy. It was because she could not understand Yang Qindong's thoughts that Su Moner became even more anxious. What was worse was that she realized that she did not hate Yang Qindong. It was just like when she saw Yang Qindong singing and dancing with his soldiers during the evening party. She actually felt happy in her heart. This was not a good sign. She could only have the intention to kill her target. It was impossible for her to have the slightest bit of liking for him. Otherwise, how could she complete her mission? The servant girl, Xiao Yun, was still talking endlessly, but Su Moner could not listen to a single word. From time to time, Yang Qindong's figure would flash across her mind. There was a faint smile on the corner of her mouth, as if it had grown in her head. Even if she waved her hand, it would not go far away. In the tent not far away, Yang Qindong was still using his power to have women on his left and right. After sleeping together for a while, they entered a short intermission. Hiding under Yang Qindong's strong arms, Hu Yan asked with an obedient look, "Lu Lang, is the war about to end?" "Yes, the Huang bandit army is about to be destroyed. The war in Guangdong is about to end." Yang Qindong nodded and admitted. However, he only said that the war in Guangdong was about to end. He did not say that the war was about to end. This originally expressed his attitude. As Hu Yan had other thoughts, she did not think too deeply about it. Naturally, she did not understand the deeper meaning in his words. When she heard Yang Qindong say that it was really about to end, she raised her head slightly. "Lu Lang, what do you plan to do about Miss Su's matter? She has been following us for more than a month without knowing why. What are you thinking?" What do you want me to think?" When Yang Qindong heard Hu Yan talk about Su Moner, he could not help but become interested and asked, "This, I don't know." Hu Yan shook her head. She also did not know what kind of mentality she was in now. As a woman, she did not wish to share the man she liked with other women. However, Yang Qindong was so young and so capable. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was in a high position and had great power. Such a person was destined not to belong to any woman. Even ordinary people who had some ability would marry a few concubines, let alone people like Yang Qindong. Chapter 399. In Hu Yan's eyes, Lu Lang would marry a lot of concubines in the future. As the legal wife, she was also his wife. What she could do was to arrange such things. At least, she could not let outsiders say that she was a jealous woman. This was also one of the responsibilities of a legal wife. It was because of this that she asked about Su Moner. Hu Yan did not know what Yang Qindong was thinking, so she naturally said that she did not know what to do. On the other side, Madame Shui, who was being hugged on the other side, said in a low voice, "Husband, sister, I think Miss Su is very good, especially her singing and dancing skills. I can't compare with her." "Silly girl, there are many people who are good at singing and dancing in this world. Does it mean that they are all good people?" Yang Qindong could not help laughing after hearing Madame Shui's words. "No, I can feel that Miss Su is kind in nature, but I just feel that she has something on her mind. She always gives people a feeling that she is neither close nor distant." Madame Shui was afraid to leave a silly impression in Yang Qindong's eyes, so she explained in a low voice. As soon as these words were said, Yang Qindong's expression became much more serious. Even Madame Shui could feel it. It seemed that Miss Su's mind was not small. It was not good for her health if it went on like this for a long time. Should he do something? Or could it be that some things could be laid out in the open? At this moment, many plans flashed through Yang Qindong's mind. Su Moner's matter was about to be destroyed along with the Huang bandit army. It was time to solve it. On the official road from Gaozhou to Laizhou, nearly 100,000 people were walking slowly. They had not had a good rest for 2 days and 2 nights. The mental state of the whole team was depressed to a certain extent. Huang Yuliang, who was riding on the horse, looked at all this anxiously. He could not see where the bright future lay. More importantly, the 2,000 trusted subordinates he sent out had already sent back news that they had arrived at Laizhou Prefecture and discovered the presence of the Ming army. However, Their numbers did not seem to be large, and they might have a chance to attack the city. However, when it came to military operations, they still needed the young master to personally give the order. After all, they originally only wanted to complete the reconnaissance mission. Young master, the team's condition isn't good. Even if we reach Leizhou, I'm afraid we won't be able to complete the mission. Zhu Fangyong followed beside Huang Yuliang and said with a worried expression, General Zhu, do you have any ideas? Huang Yuliang placed his last hope on Zhu Fangyong. Young master, I have a suggestion. We should pick out some elite soldiers and arrange for them to rest. Then we should rush to Leizhou City first and attack that place. Only then will the army have a way out. Zhu Fangyong said with a serious expression, as if he was worried about the army and the people. All right, then I'll have to trouble General Zhu to lead the team. At this time, only General Zhu can do things personally to make this young master feel at ease. Nodding lightly, Huang Yuliang placed his last hope on Zhu Fangyong. The 4 heavenly kings under him had either died in battle, been captured, or disappeared. There were not many people in the army that he could truly trust. Even Zhu Fangyong could not make him completely trust him. However, at this moment, Huang Yuliang did not have any other choice. He could only take a gamble. Zhu Fangyong did not immediately agree. Instead, he said with a thoughtful expression, I do not dare to disobey young master's orders. However, if we want to storm Leizhou Prefecture, I'm afraid we will need young master's 2,000 trusted soldiers. If I may be so bold, I would like to ask young master to write a letter and have those people listen to your orders. Frowning, Huang Yuliang said with some suspicion, do we really need these 2,000 trusted soldiers to act personally? Can't General Zhu take a few more people from the army to storm the city? Huang Yuliang didn't seem willing, and this was within Zhu Fangyong's expectations. Therefore, after hearing Huang Yuliang's words, Zhu Fangyong had an awkward expression on his face. Young master, as you can see, the army has been rushing through the night, and their condition is no longer the same as before. If we don't attack Leizhou City in one go, I'm afraid that the morale of the army will be shaken. If that happens, I'm afraid that the situation won't be good. Zhu Fangyong's words were very reasonable. The art of war was about winning a battle in one go. Once the battle became a battle of attrition, there would be pursuers behind and obstructions in front. The current Huang bandit army would not be able to handle it. For the sake of the big picture and his own safety, Huang Yuliang lowered his head and thought for a few breaths of time. Then he nodded and said, Fine, since this is the case, I will hand the 2,000 men over to General Zhu. I wish you victory. As you wish. In the following time, Huang Yuliang personally wrote a letter to Zhu Fangyong. This was equivalent to handing over the command of the 2,000 soldiers to Zhu Fangyong, following which Zhu Fangyong selected 3,000-strong young men from the 50,000-strong army and rushed towards the Leizhou ahead of everyone else. Young master, General Zhu left. Other than the weapons he carried with him, he did not take any gold or silver. The person in charge of watching Zhu Fangyong came to Huang Yuliang's side and reported in a small voice. Understood. Huang Yuliang's expression clearly relaxed a lot after hearing this news. He was worried that Zhu Fangyong would think of a way to escape when he saw that the situation was not good. However, if he did not take any gold or silver with him, it was unlikely that he would not return. If this was the case, then he could relax a lot. In his heart, he prayed that Zhu Fangyong would successfully take down Leizhou City. This might be his only chance, and hoped to turn things around. On the second day, the army passed through 5 miles of Gaozhou City. They could already see the tall city walls in the distance. They could also see the sun and moon banners there. However, because the difference in strength between the two sides was too great, General Yu Guang, who was guarding Gaozhou City, did not have the slightest intention of going out to fight. Close to 100,000 people successfully passed through Gaozhou City. Soon after, good news came from the front lines. The letter was personally written by Zhu Fangyong. He said that he brought people to Laizhou City in the night. After reporting to his 2,000 soldiers, he launched an attack on the city at dawn. Because the soldiers sacrificed their lives, and there were not many Ming dynasty soldiers guarding Laizhou City, the battle ended in one battle. Laizhou City was now in the hands of the Huang bandit army. Haha, good. Seeing this news and seeing that the army had successfully passed through Gaozhou City, the tiredness of the past few days was swept away. Huang Yuliang finally saw a new hope. Pass down the order. The army will speed up. The sooner we reach Laizhou City, the better we can rest there and sleep for a few days. After the order was passed down, everyone's eyes were filled with hope. Their speed was even faster than before. After having a goal and hope, everyone's potential was also stimulated. Originally, it would have taken 3 days to complete the journey. However, on the second night, the army arrived at the Laizhou prefecture city. Looking from afar, the city gates were wide open. A group of Huang bandit army were holding torches on both sides of the city gates, welcoming the young master and the army. Haha, good. Although Huang Yuliang was very tired at this moment, it was as if he had the final radiance of the setting sun. His face revealed an excited and relaxed expression. From afar, Zhu Fangyong and a group of followers appeared. When they were 3 steps away from Huang Yuliang, they half knelt on the ground. Then they raised their head and said, "Young master, I did not disappoint you and took down Laizhou City. Right now, the city has already prepared hot food and water. We are just waiting for the army to settle in and rest." Good. General Zhu, you have worked hard, Huang Yuliang said a few more times. Then, his gaze seemed to casually fall on the welcoming army. He frowned slightly. He did not see the presence of his 2,000 soldiers. Huang Yuliang's suspicious gaze fell on Zhu Fangyong's eyes, and he also felt that something was amiss. However, before he could speak, the army behind suddenly became chaotic. Then, a scout on a fast horse rushed over. Young master, something bad has happened. The Ming army behind us has suddenly increased their speed. They are now less than 10 li away from us. So fast, we need to enter the city quickly. Men, protect young master as he enters the city. Zhu Fangyong's reaction was extremely fast. He knew that the 6th young master had rushed over with his army. It was time to reel in the net. Without any explanation, he waved his arm. Behind him, people rushed past him and rushed in front of Huang Yuliang. Wait! Huang Yuliang already felt that something was wrong. However, he could not pinpoint what was wrong. Instinctively, he wanted to resist. However, he did not expect that the people who ran to his side only needed to touch his body to make him feel numb. Then, he felt dizzy and fell to the ground. Fortunately, he was discovered, and Zhu Fangyong's subordinates caught him in time. Using this opportunity, he shouted, "The young master has fainted from exhaustion. Everyone, listen to my orders. Enter the city quickly." There were pursuers behind them. Entering the city was the safest way. There was no need for Zhu Fangyong to say anything. Everyone was already scrambling to rush into the city. At this moment, these people walked as if they were flying. How could they be tired at all? With everyone's concerted efforts, they finally entered the city when the Ming army was 2 li away from the city. The moment the heavy city gates closed, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Immediately, many people fell to the ground and slept because they were too tired and relaxed. Some of the people who were barely holding on also entered the houses allocated to them by the city and fell asleep on their beds. A total of 50,000 Huang bandits and 40,000 commoners fell asleep in the Laizhou prefecture. Just as they fell asleep outside the city, Yang Qindong led 5,000 people into the city. At the same time, the bandit leader Huang Yuliang was led to a large courtyard in the Laizhou prefecture. Chapter 400. When Huang Yuliang could not see the 2,000 soldiers he sent outside the city, he began to have doubts in his heart. It was only because of the battle report from behind that he put down his thoughts and hurried into the city. However, as soon as he entered the city and entered his large courtyard, which was also when he separated from the army, over 100 vigorous men rushed out from all over the courtyard. The dozens of guards around him were quickly killed, and he was also tied up with ropes. Huang Yuliang, whose mouth was gagged and could not speak, was furious. However, with his body tied up, he could only struggle with all his might to express the dissatisfaction in his heart. All of this continued until he was sent to the magistrate's office and saw a young man sitting high above. Beside the young man was Zhu Fangyong, whom he had once given great authority to. Only then was the white cloth in his mouth taken off, and what followed was a torrent of curses. Zhu Fangyong, this young master has treated you well. How can you do this to me? After the white cloth was removed, Huang Yuliang's shouts could be heard. After being tortured for so long, how could he still have the strength to shout? You have treated me well? You can ask yourself, when have you truly trusted me? Bring him in. Facing Huang Yuliang's questioning, Zhu Fangyong's expression did not change, and he shouted outside. Following this shout, a man with a face full of sideburns was quickly brought in. Just like Huang Yuliang, his entire body was also tied up. Upon seeing this person, Huang Yuliang was dumbfounded. Of course, he recognized the person who was tied up. This was the assistant he had secretly arranged by Zhu Fangyong's side. He was also a spy, and his name was Lu Chang. Normally, everything about Zhu Fangyong was secretly reported to him by this person. When Lu Chang appeared, Zhu Fangyong looked at Huang Yuliang and said, "Since you trust me, why did you arrange for someone to secretly monitor me? Moreover, you even ordered him to kill me on the spot if he discovered that I had any thoughts of rebelling. Can this also be called treating people well?" These words were naturally from Lu Chang. Hearing this, Huang Yuliang could already tell that the no way to salvage the situation. Zhu Fangyong. He didn't want to dwell the young man sitting at the head of the table. Instead, even so, he changed his accusation before his death would definitely be like a thorn in the young man's heart. You are a despicable person who betrays his master for glory. Today's words might you can betray me to curry favor with the Southern Ming Empire to the guillotine. Who knows if you will betray understood the meaning behind Huang Yuliang's to curry favor and his face turned one day. Although he was ordered to go undercover this time, you have in order to gain Huang Yuliang's trust, he had indeed put in some effort. You deserve to be punished by he had even said some overboard words. This was Huang Yuliang's counterattack. That was only because the situation knew that the matter was over. However, everything was if someone were to repeat he set up another trap before his death. He wouldn't be able to defend himself even if he had 100 mouths. When Huang Yuliang's expression changed, he also laughed out loud. He noticed that not only did Zhu Fangyong's expression turn ugly, but the young man sitting at the head of the table also had an unhappy expression. Did this not prove that the thorn he planted had already taken effect? Ha 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 ha. Just as Huang Yuliang's laughter sounded, another loud laugh followed, and it quickly drowned out his laughter. This voice came from Yang Qindong, who was sitting at the head of the table. Yang Qindong's sudden laughter stopped Huang Yuliang's laughter. He looked at the young man with a puzzled expression. He couldn't understand why the other party was laughing, and he couldn't tell what was going to happen next. Ha! Very good, very good. As expected of someone who could become a bandit leader. This psychological attack is indeed powerful. It's just that your calculations are wrong. Battalion Commander Zhu was originally arranged by me to be by your side. Everything he did and everything he said was approved by me. Perhaps in the process of carrying out the mission, he had no choice but to use some tricks. However, that was also to better complete the plan. Now that you have been captured and kneeled in front of me, it is clear proof. Yang Chendong, who was laughing loudly, first proved Zhu Fangyong's innocence. He explained that Zhu Fangyong had become a spy completely under his orders, and everything he did was to complete the mission. With this, he placed Zhu Fangyong in an extremely high position. Next, Yang Chendong continued to speak in order to prevent any future troubles. Zhu Fangyong will be the deputy commander of the Cold Vanguard's 2nd Regiment, and will be awarded the rank of lieutenant colonel in recognition of his outstanding contribution in eliminating the Huang bandit army. From now on, no one is allowed to mention that Deputy Commander Zhu was a spy in the Huang bandit army. If anyone dares to disobey this order, they will be punished according to military law. Now, I will have to trouble Deputy Commander Huang to personally kill Huang Yuliang in the lobby and draw a perfect conclusion to this matter. Hearing the sound of footsteps behind her, Su Monair said without turning her head. However, since she had already said that, she quickly stood there and did not move. After about 2 or 3 breaths of time, she slowly turned around with a nervous expression. "You've come." Naturally, the person who came was Yang Chendong. Gao Xiong and the others were about to leave, and it was very likely that they would be busy with the matters in Yunnan. Naturally, it would not be good for Su Monair to stay in the military camp. Besides, he already had a rough idea of the other party's intentions. There were some things that should be resolved, and it would not be good to drag things on. Yang Chendong saw the graceful Su Monair turn her head. She was still as stunning as ever. He couldn't help but take a few more glances and make a soft sound of agreement. Su Monair was naturally not prepared for Yang Chendong's arrival. Previously, she had heard that he had gone to busy himself with military matters. Now, he had suddenly appeared in her boudoir. How could she not be shocked? She was even a bit nervous. Her gaze seemed to involuntarily glance outside. When she saw that it was still afternoon and not dark time for bedtime, she couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. She thought to herself, no matter how anxious she is, she can't possibly do anything to me right now. As a gentleman, he had to have his own demeanor. As she had not expected this, Su Monair was first nervous. However, her experience quickly took effect. Her expression started to return to normal. Her hands and feet were also very nimble as she prepared a cup of tea and brought it to Yang Chendong. "Lord Imperial Envoy, please have some tea. How many times have I told you? You can call me the young master of the Yang family, or you can call me the East Marshal. Lord Imperial Envoy is an official title. It is not something a beautiful woman like you should call me." Yang Chendong's voice was still ringing in her ears. However, his hand had already pressed down on the teacup. Then, his other hand seized the opportunity to grab Su Monair's jade arm and did not let go. Who would have thought that Yang Chendong had lost his usual demeanor and was actually committing lewd acts in broad daylight? Su Monair, who was completely unprepared, couldn't help but cry out in shock. "Qin, East Marshal, what are you doing? What do you think I'm doing? Didn't you come to my side to serve me?" Yang Chendong asked with interest. Yes, but why didn't East Marshal have any thoughts about me before?" As she struggled, Su Monair also asked the question in her heart. Previously, we dealt with the Huang bandit army together. How could I have such thoughts? Now that the overall situation has been decided, I naturally have to do what needs to be done. come beauty. At this moment, Yang Qindong had changed his usual gentle demeanor. It was as if he was a completely different person. All she knew was that the moment she stabbed out with the hairpin, her heart had indeed ached fiercely. Even the words she said at the end were said in an emotional state. She was afraid that she had already forgotten how many of them were from her heart, and she was even more unable to face them. Now, Yang Qindong was actually fine. That meant that she hadn't completed her mission. Then, she should be sad right now. But why was there a hint of joy in her heart that she couldn't explain? Su Monair sat back down on the stool. It was Yang Qindong's turn to speak with assurance. You don't have to ask why I'm prepared. I still have many tricks up my sleeve. Otherwise, I wouldn't have lived until today. I actually know some things about you long ago, so I can understand you. You must have your own difficulties. Now, I'll give you a chance. Tell me everything. No matter what the reason is, I can promise that I won't kill you. Yang Qindong's words rang out in the lady's boudoir, but he didn't get any response from Su Monair. She just sat there in a daze, with a dull look in her eyes. What's wrong? Why aren't you saying anything? Didn't you say that you have a mission? What kind of mission is this? As Yang Qindong spoke, he moved closer to Su Monair. He could feel the struggle in her heart and could also imagine the entanglement in her heart. He was a little worried that she might suddenly commit suicide. He slowly moved closer and was prepared to make a move at any time. Yang Qindong's footsteps got closer and closer. The distance of 5 to 6 steps took him 3 breaths' time. Just as he was about to rush over and grab Su Monair, the lady's sleeves suddenly trembled and a copper hairpin appeared. However, this time, the hairpin that appeared did not have any intention of targeting Yang Qindong. Instead, it changed its direction and placed it on her neck. Su Monair's originally expressionless face also had a hint of blood. Don't come over. I've let you down. I'll commit suicide in front of you. I just hope that you won't make things difficult for my maid. Xiao Yun, just pretend that I've never appeared here. Wait. The moment Su Monair finished speaking, the hairpin had already moved towards her snow-white neck. However, at the same time, Yang Qindong's shout rang out. If you don't say anything and just die like this, in order to find out the reason behind this, it's inevitable that I'll do something to your maid. So, you can't die yet? At least, you can't die before you tell me the reason. Yang Qindong's unconventional method of wanting to save Su Monair was a little cold-blooded, but it was still a method. However, in front of Su Monair, who was determined to die, its effect was very limited. Not only did she look as if she did not listen to him, she even said with a sorrowful expression, "Why don't I even have the right to choose to die?" After saying that, a look of resentment flashed across Su Monair's eyes, as if she was complaining about how unfair the heavens were to her. Since they had allowed her to be born, why did they have to torment her like this? The light that flashed across Su Monair's eyes gave Yang Qindong a bad feeling. He could seriously say that this woman really wanted to die. If that was the case, it would be difficult to move her no matter how much he said now. Then what should he do? Just as Su Monair was determined to die and Yang Qindong was at a loss of what to do, the maid, Xiao Yun's shout suddenly came from outside the room. "Miss, are you inside?" Ugh. Xiao Yun, who had shouted halfway, immediately stopped moving. It was obvious that Tiger's Mane and Beta Persei, who were supposed to be outside, had stopped her. The moment the two of them made a move outside, Yang Qindong, who was inside the room, also moved. With a big stride, he crossed the distance that he would usually need to take 3 steps and appeared beside Su Monair like a gust of wind. It was Xiao Yun's shout just now that caused Su Monair's face to become slightly absent-minded. This sudden opportunity was seized by Yang Chendong. He flew over and came to Su Maner's side, reaching out his hand to snatch the hairpin. Yang Chendong's speed was already very fast, and he had grasped the opportunity very accurately. However, it was as if there was God's will in the unseen world. Just as he reached out his hand to grab it, Su Maner reacted. Her arms suddenly fell, piercing straight towards her neck. Then, as her arm fell, a large hand pushed up and grabbed the delicate hand that was holding the hairpin. Even so, her movements were still slower by half a beat. The hairpin still left a small scratch on Su Maner's fair and flawless neck. Once the scratch was made, fresh blood flowed out of her body. The moment she felt that her neck was a little cold, Su Maner stopped struggling and allowed Yang Chendong to restrain her arm. She also allowed herself to be held in his arms. It's useless. This hairpin is also coated with a strong poison. If it comes into contact with my body, I'll definitely die. Haha, I'm going to die. With an unknown emotion, Su Maner slowly said this. Then, she raised her gaze slightly and looked at Yang Chendong's face and eyes. I'm going to die. In the future, I won't be a threat to you. I won't be in so much pain. To me, this is already a kind of release. Release my ass. Yang Chendong, who had always given off an elegant feeling, suddenly spat out vulgarities at this moment. Then he roared loudly like a male lion. Since you've come to my side, you're my woman. Without my consent, no one can decide whether you live or die. This includes you. But I'm still going to die, aren't I? Seeing that Yang Chendong was angry, a smile actually bloomed on Su Maner's face. It seemed to be a satisfied smile, but more like a happy smile. I thought that you didn't care about me at all. I thought that I couldn't enter your eyes. But now, lying in your arms, I can clearly feel your heartbeat and breathing. I can also feel that you like me, right? As a person who was about to die, Su Maner seemed to be able to finally free her heart. Her words were much more direct than before. Yes, I like you. From the first time I saw you, I was mesmerized by you. Yang Chendong kept nodding and admitting his feelings. And you also like me, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't have cried just now, right? Faced with Yang Chendong's question, Su Maner really wanted to say yes. Through these days of observation and contact, she saw all the good points of this man. He was elegant, polite, and talented, especially his strategic attitude on the battlefield and his confidence in life with a smile. It was as if as long as he smiled, there was nothing in the world that could be difficult for him. Which young girl wouldn't like a man with such an imposing aura? Chapter 4:03. Other people could like Yang Chendong, but Su Maner could not. Her background meant that her right to like had long been taken away from her. All she had to do was hide the trace of murderous intent in her heart. She had been doing her best to hide her true feelings. Even until her death, Su Maner still did not dare to admit it. Faced with Yang Chendong's question, she could only force a smile. I'm about to die. Is this still important? Your embrace is very comfortable. I want to sleep. I'm already very happy to be able to slowly sleep here. After saying this, Su Maner slowly closed her eyes. At the same time, a drop of sparkling tear slid out from the corner of her eye. Perhaps this teardrop represented her last breath. Perhaps when it fell to the ground, she would stop breathing. No, you can't sleep. Someone come quickly. Yang Chendong knew that if Su Maner closed her eyes and fell asleep now, she would probably never wake up again. Hence, he wanted to stop her from closing her eyes and go to sleep. His shout rang out, tiger's mane, beta persei, and the servant girl, Xiao Yun, who was carried under the blanket like a little chick, rushed into the room. When the three of them saw Yang Qindong with a dark face and carrying the crying Su Maner in his arms, they stood rooted to the ground as if they had been struck by lightning. They did not know what had happened and why they had seen such a scene. Tiger's mane and Beta Persei in particular were actually a little anxious at this moment. This was because this was the first time they had seen such a terrifying expression on the young master's face. It was as if he was going to eat a living person. Quick, go find a doctor. Find a doctor who can treat poison. Miss Su is injured. She was hurt by the poisonous hairpin. Go quickly. Yang Qindong, who was almost shouting these words, stretched out his right index finger and pointed outside the door. Oh, Tiger's mane and Beta Persei both agreed readily and turned to leave. At this moment, a weak voice sounded in their ears. Miss should be fine. Not only did Hu Mang and Yang Er, who were about to leave, stop in their tracks, but even Yang Qindong, who looked like he wanted to eat someone, and Su Maner, who was in his arms, widened their eyes at this moment. They looked at the maid, Xiao Yun, who was about to be ignored. Noticing that everyone's gaze was on her, Xiao Yun felt a wave of panic in her heart. She actually lowered her head in fear under such gazes. Raise your head and repeat what you just said. Yang Qindong's voice suddenly rang out, rushing towards Xiao Yun's ears like thunder. Under such a shout, even Beta Persei, who had always had a thunderous voice, felt a sense of inferiority. However, no one cared about the volume of the voice at this time. Instead, they all looked at Xiao Yun, waiting for her answer. Xiao Yun was also frightened by the thunderous voice. She had no choice but to raise her head again. Using her still weak voice, she asked, "May I ask if the hairpin that injured the young miss is the one in your hands?" "That's right, what's wrong?" Yang Qindong instinctively responded, then asked in a deep voice. At this time, he didn't notice that his usual confidence had long disappeared. Now, he was just an ordinary man who was swayed by his feelings. "Ah, it really is. Then there's no problem. This hairpin is not poisonous. Only that hairpin is poisonous." When she heard Yang Qindong's clear answer, Xiao Yun couldn't help but speak with joy. "Not poisonous? How do you know?" Yang Qindong still didn't believe her. Su Maner, who was in his arms, had a slight change in her expression, but no one paid attention to her at this time. "It's like this," Xiao Yun was honest. She answered whatever Yang Qindong asked and was extremely cooperative. "The hairpin that fell on the ground was given to us by someone else. It was already contaminated with a huge poison. The hairpin in your hands is slightly small, but Miss asked me to prepare it. She said that if things didn't work out, she would use this hairpin to commit suicide. But how could I let Miss die? So I agreed, but in reality, I didn't put anything on it. I lied to Miss. I'm sorry." Xiao Yun told the truth intermittently. Then she lowered her head and grabbed the corner of her clothes timidly. She looked like she had accepted her punishment. "Ha! Good, good. You lied well, you lied well." After Yang Qindong understood everything, he actually laughed out loud. Then he lowered his head to look at Su Maner in his arms and said with a smile, "You heard it. It's just a small external wound. This kind of wound won't kill anyone." Su Maner, who was in his arms, was blushing at this moment. The moment Xiao Yun said that she wouldn't die, she already had a faint feeling. Now that the truth was out, she didn't know if she should be resentful or glad. Thinking of how she was still hiding in Yang Qindong's arms, looking so delicate and weak, how could she not be ashamed to see others? Su Maner closed her eyes tightly, but her long eyelashes kept blinking. This meant that she was fine now, better than ever. Knowing that Su Maner was fine, Yang Qindong could finally relax and begin to resolve the matter that had happened. Xiao Yun, you said that the hairpin with the poison was given to you by someone. Who is he? Xiao Yun, don't say it. Su Mo, who was in his arms, suddenly interrupted. Then she was about to stand up with her beautiful eyes. Since she didn't kill Yang Chendong, as long as she took all the blame, it wouldn't have anything to do with anyone else. Su Moner's interruption made Yang Chendong a little angry. After turning his head to glare at her, he saw her stubborn gaze. To be able to become the top courtesan of the Qinhuai River, it wasn't just because of her beautiful appearance. Chapter 404. In Su Moner's boudoir, the food was also served. The only difference was that the woman in the room no longer had the strength to eat. At this moment, she was lying in Yang Chendong's arms and being fed mouthful by mouthful. Under Yang Chendong's countless corrections and even punishments, Su Moner finally changed her way of addressing him as husband. At this moment, she was using the new way of addressing him. Husband, I still have some strength. Don't I need you to feed me? You still have strength? All right then, let's eat in a while, and then go through the actions just now. Yang Chendong nodded as if he was serious and put down the bowl and chopsticks in his hands. No, I don't have any strength left. Su Moner naturally knew what Yang Chendong was preparing to do. She was really frightened and kept shaking her head. From the afternoon until now, more than 6 hours had passed. This man was like an ox that did not know fatigue. He did not allow her to rest for even a moment. She finally understood why Sister Huyen and Sister Shui, Nyangzi, usually served him together. This man really seemed to have endless strength and energy. No one would ever know what his background was. Seeing that Su Moner was begging for mercy, Yang Chendong then said with an uncomplaining expression, "Since you don't have any strength, then let your husband feed you." But you will spoil Moner like this," Su Moner said shyly, but her face was brimming with a happy smile. "I want to spoil you. You have indeed suffered too much in the years that I didn't know you. From now on, you will live the rest of your life without worrying about food and clothing. The happiness that you didn't have in the past will be given to you in double. You only need to accept it and don't reject it anymore, okay?" Yang Chendong looked into Su Moner's eyes seriously and said affectionately. There were tears in Su Moner's eyes again. She thought about her previous life. When she was young, she took refuge and had no one to rely on. When she grew up, she had to learn some skills in order to survive. In order to do better, she studied day and night. Later on, when she had a certain reputation, she had to deal with all kinds of men. Sometimes when she met difficult customers, she would be mentally and physically exhausted. Many sleepless nights because of this. She did not even know what her future life would be like. Would she be like the other older sisters and find a rich man to marry and then be trapped in a courtyard for the rest of his life? At that time, he was like a small boat floating on the sea, not knowing where his next destination was. Where is the hope of life? What would happen in the future? However, things were different now. She had a husband who loved her dearly. Most importantly, this man was very outstanding. He seemed to be more outstanding than all the men she had met before. Now that he was treating her so well, she really felt like she couldn't find her bearings. "Husband, can you really always treat me well like this?" Su Moner couldn't believe everything in front of her eyes. She was a little worried about her gains and losses. "Of course, I will always treat Moner well. You can rest assured." Yang Chendong chuckled. At this moment, in his eyes, the Su Moner who was bold, wise, and even tolerant had long disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by a petite and lovable woman. But no matter which one it was, he liked her very much. Under Yang Chendong's service, Su Moner ate some food. When the sky was completely dark, the two of them lay on the bed again. However, this time, the two of them didn't do anything. This was naturally the result of being considerate. Because of this, Su Maner, who felt that Yang Qindong's body had begun to change, said embarrassedly, "Husband, why don't you go look for Sister Hu Yan and Sister Xuan Yangzi? Don't let yourself suffer because of me." "How can it be suffering? I'm willing to be with you. Moreover, this is the first night that the two of us have truly spent together. Of course, I have to accompany you." Maner, don't be embarrassed. Why don't we talk?" Yang Qindong hugged Su Maner in his arms and said softly. Su Maner nodded lightly and moved her head closer to Yang Qindong's arms. She twisted her body slightly and felt that she was in a comfortable position. Then she opened her mouth and said, "Husband, you said that you know everything about Maner. Is that true?" "You can say that." Yang Qindong nodded. "I know that you were originally born in a big family. You have a very powerful grandfather called Su Cheng. He was once the left assistant minister of the Ministry of Rights in the capital of Nanjing. After Yang Qindong told her everything that he knew, it was Su Maner's turn to talk. Perhaps she was unable to mention these things to others. Now that she could finally open her heart and continue talking, she might as well tell him everything. In the end, without waiting for Yang Qindong to ask, she told him the reason for staying here and the mission clearly. Su Maner's grandfather was Su Cheng. When Su Cheng was sentenced to death, the Su family became a thing of the past. As the only living bloodline member of the Su family, Su Maner had a wish since she was young, and that was to redress the Su family's reputation. For this goal, she was even willing to give up everything, including her body and her only life. Becoming the #1 courtesan was a method that Su Maner wanted to use to achieve her goal. She wanted to use her beauty to build a network of connections and then use those men who had taken a fancy to her to help her achieve her goal. However, as she came into contact with more and more people, her mind became more and more mature. She realized how naive her thoughts were. "But ever since that person came to talk to me, the emperor did not send anyone here. I don't know if this counts as a connection." Su Maner was very smart. From this action, she managed to deduce a clue related to Ingzong Zhu Qizhen. And in that case, there is indeed some connection. At least it proves that he should know about this matter. "That's right, you haven't found him yet. Who is that person? I don't think his position is too low. Otherwise, you wouldn't believe that he can redress your Su family's name." Yang Qindong nodded. He agreed with Su Maner's deduction, but he was very curious about the identity of the person who took the initiative to speak up. Without making Yang Qindong wait for long, Su Maner opened her cherry lips and said, "He is Menda." "Menda? Commander of the embroidered uniform guards." After Yang Qindong heard the name, he immediately said this person's official position. "That's right." Su Maner was not surprised at all. Yang Qindong could be so highly regarded. If he even knew about Menda, she would feel that it was strange. Menda, commander of the Southern Ming embroidered uniform guards. It was just a third-rank official position. And when this embroidered uniform guards was mentioned, everyone's first reaction would probably be that they were arrogant and domineering. In reality, the embroidered uniform guards did indeed have a lot of power. The embroidered uniform guards wore tuxedos and had embroidered spring swords at their waists. A sentence like, "Embroidered uniform guards are handling a case, pedestrians should give way," would probably scare many people. But how powerful was this arrogant commander of the embroidered uniform guards? First of all, in terms of official position, the commander of the embroidered uniform guards was only a third-rank official. His official position was not that high. However, the power of the commander of the embroidered uniform guards was through the roof. It was said that Zhu Yuanzhang was a pure peasant. Because his background was too lowly, he was always afraid that others would not accept him and want to rebel against him. Hence, he established the embroidered uniform guards. The embroidered uniform guards also became an extremely sharp sword in the hands of the emperor. The embroidered uniform guards directly received orders from the emperor. Other than the emperor, they could disobey anyone else's orders. I will definitely give you a satisfactory explanation. How about that? Husband. Su Mon started crying again. She was still moved to tears. This kind of thinking of her, in all aspects, melted Su Mon's heart. She didn't know why, but she actually said, "Husband, you're still thinking about it, right? Why don't you let me serve you?" "Oh, you still have the strength," Yang Chendong said in surprise. Not long after, the sound of spring echoed in the boudoir again. Su Mon had become one of the 6th young master's women. This matter had become a secret for the time being. Only the 2 madams, Tiger's Mane, Beta Persei, and the first guard team knew about it. The reason why it hadn't been made public was that Yang Chendong wanted to numb his opponents. Yang Xia still needed a large number of people and military strength to continue developing. Before they met the conditions, they couldn't fall out with the Ming dynasty for the time being. Because of this matter, Hu Yan and Lady Shui had both comforted Su Mon. They said that their husbands seemed to be able to go anywhere in the world, but in reality, there were too many restrictions. Even in the southern Ming dynasty's capital, there were still 2 madams. Their husband had to take care of all of this. Su Mon's matter could only be suppressed for now. This was also because Yang Chendong only told Hu Yan and Lady Shui that Su Mon was sent by the southern Ming emperor to spy on him. It was only because of love that she chose to tell him everything. He didn't say anything about Su Mon's actions because he didn't want the madams to have any knot in their hearts. Su Mon's first thought was to redress the Su family's reputation. As for other matters, she didn't care. As long as Yang Chendong treated her well, everything would be fine. Su Mon's matter had been temporarily resolved. If the Su family's matter wanted to be resolved, they needed an opportunity. They couldn't be too hasty. The first thing they had to resolve was the matter in front of them. After Laizhou Prefecture became an empty city, Yang Chendong ordered a large fire to burn down more than half of the place. To the outside world, it was said that it was done by the remnants of the Huang bandit army. This way, many facts could be covered up. For example, the disappearance of a large number of people could be considered an explanation. After the fire in Laizhou, the people who should have left had to leave. On a flat beach near the sea, Yang Chendong personally sent everyone off. Among them were Su Mon and her maid, Xiao Yun. Since the Huang bandit army had been destroyed, logically speaking, Su Mon should have taken action. However, now that Yang Chendong was fine, this woman had to disappear. At the very least, she had to make sure that Menda couldn't find her. Based on the embroidered uniform guard's way of doing things, it didn't seem safe to leave her anywhere. In the end, they decided to send her to Qiqian's city. In Yang Chendong's words, it was to let her go there to relax. In addition, she could better display her abilities and capture the Qiqian city military's song and dance troupe. This was an outstanding troupe that served the army. If used well, it would be of great use outside of the war. Just based on this, it was worthy of Yang Chendong's attention. To Su Mon, it was a little cruel to be separated after just being together. However, she also knew that regardless of whether it was her own matter or her husband's matter, they were all important matters. In comparison, her small matter was nothing. Su Mon agreed. She didn't cry or make a fuss. She only gave Yang Qindong a long kiss in front of Hu Yan and Lady Shui. This was also a way to declare her sovereignty, telling them that she had truly become Yang Qindong's woman. Gao Xiong and Zhu Fangyong left by boat. Yang Qindong didn't go with them to Ryukyu Island. Although he had always wanted to see the changes there, he didn't do so in the end. He knew very well that his mission hadn't been completed. Although the Huang bandit army had been eliminated, Yu Yan and Yu Lai were responsible for the Yunnan incident, because the Great Ming dynasty was now divided into the Northern Ming dynasty and the Southern Ming dynasty. Many changes had occurred that were different from history. Yang Qindong wanted to interfere in Yunnan's matter, and had to do so. However, there was a big difference between being asked for help and taking the initiative to help. If he was too proactive, it would inevitably make people think that he had other thoughts. This would be extremely disadvantageous for what was to come. What he needed to do now was wait for Yingzong and the Southern Ming court to be unable to hold on. Naturally, someone would come forward to ask for his help. Right now, he had only sent Huang Yuliang's head to Gaozhou Prefecture. At the same time, he brought more than 8,000 soldiers. After Wu Sheng's Cold Front Battalion and the auxiliary battalion were added, the group had once again expanded and appeared here to stay. Yang Qindong brought 7,000 soldiers and stopped outside Gaozhou Prefecture. This made the original Shaozhou General Yu Guang, who was guarding this place, tremble with fear. Logically speaking, the Huang bandit army had already been destroyed. This imperial envoy's mission should have been completed. However, he still brought so many soldiers and swaggered outside the city. What was the meaning of this? What intentions did he have? Chapter 406. If it was anyone else who dared to do this, Yu Guang would still dare to bring his troops to question them, even though he didn't have many soldiers. However, when the person he was facing was Yang Qindong, he didn't have any thoughts of questioning him. Perhaps in his eyes, as long as the other party didn't find trouble with him, he would be lucky. As for questioning him, forget it. He still wanted to live for a few more days. He couldn't do anything to Yang Qindong, so Yu Guang reported the matter to Guaning and Ma Wei in Wuzhou. At the same time, he sent over the head of the bandit leader, Huang Yuliang. In Wuzhou, the frontline battle report was sent down. The Huang bandit army was destroyed, and the bandit leader, Huang Yuliang, was beheaded. All of this was placed in front of Guaning and Ma Wei, making them extremely excited. However, other than the excitement, there was also bad news in front of them. The Duke of Loyalty, Yang Qindong, was leading an army of 8,000 people to rest and reorganize outside Gaozhou. This was not a normal army, but a strong army that was very good at war. Facing this kind of army, even if they were given 2 or 3 times the number of soldiers, the 2 generals still didn't have the confidence to win. What the 2 of them understood even more clearly was that this so-called imperial envoy status was created to deal with the Huang bandit army. Now that the bandit threat was gone, the title of imperial envoy should also be taken back. So why didn't he leave and instead bring so many soldiers with him? Report it. Guaning and Ma Wei looked at each other and made the same decision. It was clear that they knew themselves. They knew that in front of Yang Qindong, their ranks were not enough. Since this was the case, they could only hand over the conflict. As for what the emperor and the court decided, they only needed to obey in the future. Outside Gaozhou, Yang Qindong was indeed resting and reorganizing the army. Hundreds of thousands of Huang bandit army were destroyed. There were many people who contributed in the war, so now was the time to reward them one by one. Lung Feng contributed, so those who should be promoted were promoted, and those who should be rewarded were rewarded. Using this trip to Kaohsiung, they also brought many military medals. Now, they could all be given out, After the auxiliary soldiers had performed meritorious deeds, their loyalty and culture were no longer a problem, and they were directly promoted to the Cold Vanguard. In a short period of time, the Cold Vanguard's 2nd Regiment, which originally only had 1,000 people, had grown to 1,300 people. Each of the 3 battalions under his command also had 4 companies instead of 3. Don't underestimate these 300 people who had just become the Cold Vanguard.